They fiercely assail. In every speech, it's the villain they unveil. From racism, patriarchy, they rail. Ain't no, ain't nothing, and way they prevail. Ushering in their marches, utopia's the end game. The turmoil and strife they aim to overthrow the old. Establish their claim in the vision, they abolish everything. They need capitalism for the pain, a clever lie. These are the foremost of the woke. Embedded in actions, words they evoke. From pushing it way to monsters, dreams in the dance of power, the scheme and scheme. In every move, their agenda gleams. Remember, nothing's ever as it seems. So, it's the red zone. Gain power, destabilize, bring capitalism into the monstrous utopia. That's what they want, that's what they want. Abolish capitalism. These are the portals of the woke. Embedded in actions, words they invoke. From pushing the clay to monstrous dreams in the dance of power, the scheme and scheme. In every move, the agenda gleams. Remember, nothing's ever as it seems. So, it's the red
Hello, fellow Gnostic sex cultists. I apologize for being a couple minutes late. I was taking a shower, and when I got out of the shower, I realized I had 2 minutes to blow dry my hair and put on my makeup. And, I mean, to my credit, I did actually get it together rather quickly. I just took a little bit of a longer shower than I anticipated taking, all right. Sometimes we just got to do that because I was working hard today. I'm in an echo. I mean, oh, hang on. I know what the problem is. I know, never mind. Hang on. I know what the problem is. Is it better now? Is my podcasting voice back? Is it better now? Yes, my microphone was in the wrong setting. All right. That's what happens when we do Spy Stream and I have to change my whole audio setup to be able to run the Zoom audio through the computer, and then it goes back, and now we have podcasting voice back. No one panic. But listen, I was working hard today. I did a new AI song. I did a new AI song last night, and today I did a little video for it with the lyrics and stuff. And so we have a new AI song that we're going to be listening to before we get into our show today. But guess what? That's not the only thing I did last night, because we did 2 spy streams yesterday. And, you know, there's been kind of like this ongoing question of like I want it, like, okay, so I have these Substacks set up to alert people to various things. I think the problem is no one effing checks their email. Like, I'm old. I'm old and I don't even check my email. Okay. So I've been like going in my head, like, is there another way that I can give people a way to get alerts about what's going on? Like when I go live for a stream or all that stuff. And we're seeing him later. Yes, Big Tech will be here later. I don't know if he'll be here or his shadow self will be here, but he is going to be here later. Anyway, so I finally decided that, like, I looked into, like, okay, how much does it cost for people to, like, for me to send out text messages for people? Like, if people want to sign up for like a text message thing, like what, like the 18 text messages I get from the Trump campaign a day, like how much does that cost? Turns out text messaging really effing expensive, especially when you have a larger list. It's really effing expensive. So I was like, okay, well, here's what we're going to do. Well, yeah, I do have the Substack app, but not everyone, like most people who read my Substack don't actually use the Substack app. They read it like in their browser. And so like, I can't rely on the Substack app for notifications. So I'm adding another thing. And you guys can sign up for it if you want, but I think this might actually be the best solution of the easiest way for me to send you notifications across like all the different things I'm doing. Cause like in Substack, you get notifications of the things I'm doing on Substack. On YouTube, you get notifications of the things I'm doing on YouTube, in theory. On X, Twitter, you get notifications of the things I'm doing on Twitter. Okay. What I want to do is have one place where I can put, here's a Substack article I just published. Here's a podcast I just published. Oh, we're going live to watch this on the YouTube channel. I want to have that all in one place. And I want it to be in a tool where people can get alerts on their phone, because some of you have been asking me to do alerts on your phone, which I think is like a valid thing, because I know that like when I'm when I get alerts on my phone, those are the things I actually pay attention to. Sad but true. And so last night during Spy Stream, I officially launched a Telegram channel, and I think this is going to be the best solution, to be honest. Now, I know that not everyone uses Telegram, but a lot of people do. So there are some benefits of Telegram. First of all, Telegram is going to be like a tool that excuse me, that I trust isn't going to cancel me. So that's honestly the most important thing, because like one of the reasons I started moving away from locals, to be honest, is that after locals sold to Rumble, and after Dave Rubin literally called me and accused me of like using my locals to plan violence against people, which is something that literally never happened, but he was told it did by a group of miserable trolls online. Like I was like, okay, I just don't think I can actually rely on locals anymore. And to their credit, locals actually hasn't done anything to cancel me. They just haven't developed the platform at all. And I don't trust them. I don't trust Rumble. I don't trust locals. I don't trust Dave Rubin. I don't trust any of these people. Okay. So when I start like so the number one thing I look for in a platform is, do I trust them not to cancel me? The reason that I started investing in Substack and started making an effort to move my locals audience over to Substack like a while ago now is that, quite frankly, I trust that Substack isn't going to cancel me. I trust them. And also, Substack is doing an excellent job of developing the platform. It's a really good platform. It lets me do a lot of things for free or for like a percentage of the subscription fees that I charge, and I think it's really great. But not everyone wants to use Substack. Most of the people who read my Substacks are not doing it through the Substack app, and that's just reality, and that's fine. If you want to do stuff through Substack, I highly encourage it. It's something that I use quite a bit of. But I think that Telegram is actually going to be better, because it's a really simple way for me to post out, hey, I'm going live. I just uploaded this podcast. I just uploaded this article, whatever the thing might be. And I trust that they're not going to cancel me. And it's a good place, if I get a strike on YouTube for something stupid, to be able to push out and say like, hey, I got a strike on YouTube, but I'm still going live on Rumble. Here's the link for that. So I want to start building up this Telegram channel. And it's also good if you want alerts on your phone of the things I'm doing. And I promise I'm not going to this is not going to be like Twitter. Okay. I'm not going to on Twitter. I basically tweet out every thought that pops into my head well, maybe not every thought. I tweet out a lot of thoughts that pop into my head, certainly not everything. But like there's a lot of stuff going on my Twitter. This is not going to be like that. The Telegram group is going to be like, here's something going on, here's a new article I wrote, here's a new podcast I wrote, here's maybe some exclusive stuff that you're only going to find on the Telegram group, to be able to get some people over there that may be otherwise uninclined to do it. And one of the things I like about this is that it does pop up with alerts on your phone when I post things if you don't have the channel muted. Okay. You can also mute the channel and not get alerts on your phone. But if you just join the Substack channel, which is t.me/unwokex, and I pinned a link on the top of the chat over on YouTube. If you just join the Telegram channel and you just like leave it alone and you don't mute it, you'll get alerts on your phone when I post. And if you were in the Telegram channel earlier today, you already saw my new song. I guess you can't see it on there, but you already saw my new song that I worked on last night as just like a fun little side project, and we're going to listen to the song today. But I really want to encourage everyone to join the Telegram channel. Again, it is t.me/unwokex. And this is going to be great again if you want alerts on your phone when I post things, stuff like that. And it's going to give me it's honestly going to make life easier for me, because instead of posting in 19 different places, I only have to post in one. And so I appreciate doing that, because posting on all the different social media sites is a giant pain in the ass, which is why I really don't do it that much anymore, because it's a giant pain in the ass, okay? So help me out. Help me help you. Go join Telegram. Go download the app. If you want alerts on your phone, if you want to know when I'm doing stuff, if you're not getting the email notifications and all that stuff, or YouTube isn't notifying you of the streams, just go join the Telegram, okay? And those who were in the Telegram when I launched it last night, you guys already got to hear my new song. And we're going to play the new song just in case that people haven't heard it. We are going to be continuing with the Evergreen series today too, but we got a couple of things to talk about. First off, Reagan says, I currently listen to the Queer Social Anarchism podcast, so I am on my way to catching up. Carlin is doing a great job with her commentary so far. And then Human Centipede, Stony Baloney, says, yes, she is doing really well with the podcast, and I think it will help her get different people that can't handle the live stream back and forth. Well, ain't that the truth, Stony Baloney? Although I do kind of tend to believe that, like, if people can't handle my live stream back and forth, they can't handle the left. That's it's like a filtering mechanism. But what they're talking about is over on the Substack. Again, Carlin, Karlyn, .substack.com. We now have part 2 of the Gender Accelerationist Manifesto as part of the Inner Circle podcast. The Inner Circle podcast is my supporter only podcast, which you have to subscribe to the Substack for $8 a month, $80 a year. And this is part 2 of 3. I haven't released part 3 yet because the first part is 40 minutes long. The second part, I think, is 50 minutes long. And so I still have one more part to do to read through the Gender Accelerationist Manifesto. But oh my God, you guys have got to listen to this podcast. And I think I will be releasing, if you aren't a paid subscriber on Substack yet, when I'm done releasing the third part to subscribers, I think that I am going to release this entire podcast on YouTube as like a preview of what people can expect with the Inner Circle podcast if they become a supporter. Kind of like when you were doing, like when you got like an HBO free preview or something, it was like HBO free preview weekend. Like I might do that because I actually do think that this document is crazy. It also confirms everything that we've been talking about. Every single thing that I've been screaming about for like the last year and a half, 2 years is showing up in this document. This is the document that is driving the modern gender ideology movement. Mark my words, and you can hear me read it and do an analysis. When I say everything, everything. This is gain of function Marxism in action. This is the queer anarcho-communist subculture that they're writing all this stuff online, and the only people who are reading this stuff and seeing this stuff are other people in the queer anarcho-communist subculture. And so we're bringing that out into the open. And I'm going to explain to you how what you're seeing in the world today with gender ideology, with attacks on parental rights, with critical race theory, with college protests, with environmental justice, with abolish the police, with all of the different things, every single thing the left is doing relates back to this stuff. And you see it clearly. Everything that we've done for the last couple of years is leading us to this point. We had to go through an entire process as a community. For people who've been with me a long time, we all grew together to learn how to speak socialist together. And we had to learn how to speak socialist because that led us to connecting with the real activists in the real world, figuring out who they were, figuring out their organizations, figuring out how to find their trainings, figuring out all that stuff. And once we did that, that led us to this. The queer anarcho-communist subculture, that the only people who really know about this stuff are socialist activists. And that's just the way it goes. And so we're bringing that to light. We had to, it's taken us a long time on this journey to get here, but we got here. And I think this is going to be really good and it's going to be impactful and people need to hear it. Trendlin says, I saw a video from PragerU today regarding LGBTQ ideology being pushed in K-9 schools. I was like, you reported on this at least 3 years ago. Well, if only PragerU had listened to me. If only PragerU had listened to what I was trying to tell them, years ago, and I literally did try to tell them this. Literally, I'm not even joking. This is not an exaggeration. I literally had conversations with people at PragerU about this back in 2021. That's not like at Dave Rubin's fucking birthday party. No joke. And I got the, oh yeah, 3 years ago. I told them about this 3 fucking years ago. Oh yeah, okay. And now look at this. Oh, well, we're ahead of PragerU, and PragerU's canceling people who don't support Israel. And PragerU's way too busy canceling people who don't support Israel. Come on. Come on. That's all right. People who know, they know. Thank you, Trendlin. I appreciate it. Let's get this member chat from Naruto. I saw that someone made a giant inflatable chicken Trump and can't figure out if that is supposed to be an own. It's hilarious. Well, I haven't seen that yet, but thank you for being a member of the channel for 8 months, Naruto. I appreciate that. Now, before we listen to my new song, I have a question. Because Human Centipede says, wait until everyone listens to James's new 10-minute podcast about queer as a political ideology. Should we listen to that before we do the Evergreen stuff? Should we just do it? Should we just listen to James's new podcast? Because I heard a rumor that after shilling the idea that queer is a Gnostic sex cult for like over a year, all of a sudden, James is talking about queer as a political ideology. All of a sudden, queer isn't a Gnostic sex cult anymore. Queer is a political ideology. Should we just listen to it? 1 in the chat if we should listen to it. 2 in the chat if we should not listen to it and deal with James later. Let me know. We are going to be listening to my new music video. We are going to be getting back into our complete Evergreen series today. But let me know if you want to listen to that James thing, because while we're doing the music video, if you guys want to listen to it, then I'll pull it up while we're doing the music video, okay? Okay, lots of ones. All right, Kaiwan is the only one that's got a 2. Sorry, K1. Lots of ones in the chat. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to play my new AI song that I wrote last night, and I made a little video for this morning. And you guys are going to get to listen to that. And while I'm playing the song, I'm going to go find James's podcast, and then we're going to listen to that. Okay? So everyone, mount the like button if you would be so kind. As a reminder, please make sure you are subscribed on YouTube, X, or Rumble, wherever you happen to be watching. And this is the official world premiere of my new song, Everything Means Capitalism.
Control the language, shape the mind. Dictate the culture, keep the masses blind. The party's hand, it moves unseen. Altering words, reshaping the scene. They twist the truth, they bend the light, crafting their narrative out of sight. Every term they redefine to serve their purpose, to toe their line. Everything means capitalism. In their parallel tongue, it's their prism. Whispered in socialist code, the truth obscured, the meanings erode. From bourgeoisie to equities, in their language weaves the twisted game. Each word a tool, each phrase a ploy to quote the truth in their employ. Bourgeoisie oppressors they claim, equity's their utopia's name. Whiteness, racism, systemic fly. All roads lead back to their abolition fight. Fascism dubbed as free market strain, abolishing individual liberties. Their scheme, normativity, patriarchy's grip, all intertwined, their narrative flip. Everything means capitalism. In their parallel tongue, it's their prism. Whispered in socialist code, The truth obscured, the meanings arose from bourgeoisie to equity. Same their language weaves a twisted game. Each word a tool, each phrase a ploy to cloak the truth in their employ. Queer and trans, they declare the war on capitalism's norm they're restore. Gender binary, the nuclear family's home. Their destruction is the goal. Imperialism, colonization's reign. Decolonization to break the chain. The police, enforcers, they're named. Guardians of capital, their claim. Their language shapes, their rhetoric binds. To break the cycle, to free our minds. For in their words, their hidden game, capitalism's grip, they aim to tame. Everything means capitalism. In their parallel tongue is the prism, whispered in socialist code. The truth obscured, the meanings arose from bourgeoisie to equity. Same their language weaves a twisted game. Each word a tool, each phrase a ploy to cloak the truth in their employ. Control the language, control the crowd, but in our hearts the truth is loud. Their words may twist, their meanings bend, but in the end our voices ascend.
All right, what'd you guys think? I wanted to do a different vibe. I almost did it like a punk song. And then I was like, we've been doing a lot of like rock music. Maybe we should have a different vibe. Maybe we should have a female singer. Maybe I should try something new. It's always important to stretch creative boundaries and stuff like that. I liked it though. I thought it came out good. It was like maybe a little, like a tiny little bit more like folky than I like, but I thought it was pretty good. I thought I like so I hope you guys like it. That is the new song, Capitalism, Everything Meets Capitalism. Obviously there's a theme to my music because I'm basically taking articles from my Substack and turning them into songs. But I thought it came out pretty good, so I appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to it. And again, if you had been in the Telegram group that is pinned to the top of the chat on YouTube right now, so go join the Telegram group, you would have actually seen the song and seen the video before the stream today. So make sure you join there. You might get some sneak previews on things. All right. We are going to be going back into our Evergreen series today, but you guys want to listen to James's new podcast where James has had the startling revelation that queer is a political ideology. I don't know where he could have come up with this, considering that James has been running around saying queer is a Gnostic sex cult for at least a year at this point. And all of a sudden, queer is a political ideology. Okay, James, way to catch up. But you guys want to listen to James's new podcast? It's like 15 minutes long, so we can listen to it, and then we'll do the Evergreen stuff, and I'll yell for a little while. I'll yell. I'll get it all worked out of my system. All right. Let's do this. Fine.
Hey everybody, James Lindsay here. You're listening to New Discourses Bullets, where I give a bullet point-like summary of a single topic out of woke Marxism that you need to understand so that we can defeat it. What is it today? The definition of queer. It's time to just narrow in. It's covered, for example, in The Queering of the American Child. I've said it in
Wait. James is pretending he's covered this in The Queering of the American Child when James didn't even use the word capitalism in The Queering of the American Child. Okay, James. All right.
Podcasts of longer form. It's time to just narrow in and read to you the paragraph where queer in queer theory was defined. You need to know this definition. You need to hear all the parts of it. We're going to break it down. The language is complicated, of course, because it's woke bullshit. But here we are. This comes out of David Halperin is the author's name. He's one of
David
the
Halperin.
early foundational queer theorists. The book is called Saint Foucault Toward a Gay Hagiography. In other words, the goal is to take...
I think I keep calling David Halperin Derek Halperin, but to my credit, I do know his last name is Halperin, so I guess that's something.
The postmodern pedophile Michel Foucault, BDSM, gay, etc., who wrote History of Sexuality, Madness and Civilization, Birth of the Clinic, Discipline and Punish. Those are the kind of relevant works here. To take him and canonize him as a saint of queer theory. In other words, to say that he's kind of, the saint-like figure who is really the founder of the concepts of queer theory. That's the point of this book, which was written in 1995. And on page 62 of this book, at least the copy that I have, Halperin defines queer very clearly. There's another part in the book where he explains that everything that he means by queer is what Foucault, for those of you who are familiar with Foucault's writings, this means by, quote, the homosexual. The goal is to become homosexual. Well, Halperin says...
Why was the goal to become homosexual in 1995, or when, or back when Foucault was writing that? So Halperin wrote this in 1995. He's referencing Foucault writings from earlier. Why was the goal of queer to become homosexual back then? Pop quiz for the chat. Because that meant being against heteronormativity. Give me more. Let's do all the context that James is not going to do with his audience. So the goal of being, and again, this is what, 30 years ago? 30 years ago, the goal was to become homosexual, to go against heteronormativity. Give me more. Aha. It was before they co-opted the LGBT rights movement after gay marriage was legalized, because gay marriage wasn't legalized for another 10 years after what James Lindsay's reading. The role of the oppressed back then, 30 years ago, was homosexual. After 2015, when gay marriage became legalized nationally, homosexual was no longer the most oppressed group. And that's when queer co-opted the legitimate gay rights movement that just wanted to be married and be able to have kids and all that. And they said, okay, if you're engaging in the same things that the straights do, you are engaging in homonormativity. That when the document that James is talking about here was written, the term homonormativity hadn't been coined yet because it was impossible, because they didn't have the status within our system to be able to ascend to the straights. Does everyone understand that? Yeah, this is ancient history. James is not caught up on you can already tell James is not caught up on the new stuff. I guarantee you he's not going to be going into it at all. James seems to only focus on old written works, not modern in-class teachings. Exactly. Yup. Back then, the homosexual 30 years ago was to fight normativity being capitalism, essentially a capitalist society, and disrupt the traditional family, because the nuclear family upholds capitalism, because this was before the gays could get married. And once they could get married, they could descend to homonormativity, which is gays that uphold capitalism.
You can't do that. Obviously, you either are or you aren't. So it must mean a political stance with regard to being homosexual. And as it turns out, he goes immediately to point out that it may not have anything to do with being gay. As a matter of fact, his definition, which I'm going to read to you, which is one paragraph on page 62, his definition of queer starts with the words unlike gay identity. So it's fundamentally different than being gay. Being queer is a political stance. It has nothing to do with who you are. Let me make that very clear.
James, how stunning and brave of you, James. How stunning and fucking... Hang on. I just want to show people something. James has finally gotten around to saying that being queer has nothing to do with being gay. Hang on. I want to take you on a little trip back to last year. Did I accidentally click off of that? What the fuck just happened? What just happened? What just happened? What just happened? What just happened? Hang on, we'll get back to that in a second. We'll have to find our spot. But I want to go on a little trip. No, James, we'll get back to you in a second. I want to go on a little trip back to last year. This is over on my Substack, Carlin, KARLYN.substack.com. Last year, almost 1 year ago today, on June 16th, 2023, I wrote this article. Don't separate the LGB from the T. Separate the Q from the LGBT. Queer is a political position. And this is when James was running around saying, we need to separate the T from the LGB. This was based off of James's talking point at the time. And I was like, you retard. That's not what you should be doing. This is when I was still trying to be conciliatory towards James. And so I was basically just subtweeting him and stuff and sub-writing articles about him when I thought he was wrong on things. But James was running around being like, they're all groomers. Trans people are all groomers. We need to separate the LGB from the T. No. I was the only one talking about this at the time. James was not talking about this. And the reason that I explicitly wrote about a year ago, queer is a political statement. Anyone can be queer. You do not need to be trans or gay or lesbian, bi, etc. to be queer. We talked about Ted Kaczynski talking about how the left co-ops movements. The problem is not the T, it's the Q. Get rid of the Q. The LGB is stronger with the T. And by T in this case, I mean trans people who want to uphold the gender binary, because that is what matters. Queer wants to abolish the gender binary. They are very clear in that gender accelerationist manifesto, by the way, like extraordinarily, as clear as you can be. They literally state they want to abolish it. So it's like, they're not even mincing words. Queer wants to abolish the gender binary. Trans people who want to transition from man to woman or woman to man want to uphold the gender binary. That is the only thing that matters. And I was saying explicitly this a year ago. Welcome, James. I'm really glad you made it to the party. All right, let's go back to this. It was going to take us like an hour and a half to get through this. We're not even going to get to the Evergreen stuff today. Whatever.
Gay,
Hang on, I'm
etc.,
gonna
who
find where
wrote
I
History of
accidentally clicked
Sexuality of the concepts of queer theory. That's the point of this book, which was written in 1995. Matter of fact, his definition, which I'm going to read to you, which is one paragraph on page 60, being queer
There it
is
is.
an activity. It is a political stance. There are no
Oh.
queer animals.
You don't say
If there
no.
are queer children, they have been groomed to be. Most children are not political inherently. It is a political position. It is, as we will hear from Halperin himself, not based in reality at all. It is political. But what they do, and this is a typical Marxist maneuver, is that they conflate different contexts and treat them as they're the same. They make the political identity the personal identity. The personal is political, is the old saying, right? So the idea is that if you take a political identity of queer opposition, which is what it really is, then that
Opposition
is
to
who
what?
you really are. You are a
James, what is queer opposing? Pop quiz for the chat. What is queer opposing that James isn't going to say?
fundamentally, as a human being, a person who's opposed to the standard order of things. So it mixes together your political identity and your personal identity, and that's actually how it moves the ball. And then it hides behind people who have identities like being gay to say, well, they're technically in our network too. So if you attack us, you attack them. That is yet another blurring of contexts in order for them to advance their agenda, even though this is a very radical political stance that has nothing to do with who you are. Let me reiterate that one more time because I don't think people are going to get it. Being queer.
My audience has been getting this for over a year, James. Where the fuck were you? You don't think that people are going to understand that queer is a political ideology? I literally have a community of people who have understood this for longer than you have, bro.
is not being queer. It is acting queer, and it has nothing to do with who you are because it's a political stance. And that political stance appears to be largely continuous with various personality disorders like oppositional defiant disorder and
Oh my God. They're mentally ill. That's James's talking point. That queer Marxists are mentally ill. Bro. Then why are you losing so badly to them, James? Yes, this is his most recent podcast.
narcissism and maybe even borderline personality disorder sometimes.
Well,
Here's how
James thinks I have borderline personality disorder, so because I dare to question him. So I think that we can just like take James's mental health diagnoses, which seems to be anyone that does not kiss James's ass and worship at James's feet. Anyone who doesn't do that has borderline personality disorder, according to James. So you can take that with whatever value you want to take it with.
not Foucault, sorry. Here's how Halperin defines it. Let's just go through the definition very quickly and break it down as we go. Unlike gay identity, which, though deliberately proclaimed in an act of affirmation, is nonetheless rooted in the positive fact of homosexual object choice, queer identity need not be grounded in any positive truth or in any stable reality. So there you have it, first of all. It's not like gay identity. Why? Because even though it's proclaimed when you come out, you say, I'm gay, even though it's proclaimed in an act of affirmation, gay identity, he says, is nonetheless rooted in the positive fact. That means a fact about reality. And the positive fact is of homosexual object choice. In other words, that you are attracted to the same sex. He doesn't give any explanation for why that might be the case because he doesn't care why it might be the case. Is it innate? Is it product of abuse? Is it a choice? He doesn't care. It's not relevant. What he says, though, is it is rooted in a positive fact that somebody is saying, this is true. And he says queer identity is not like that. Unlike gay identity, which is rooted in a positive fact, queer identity need not be grounded in any positive truth.
Duh.
So it doesn't need to be grounded in any facts
what
whatsoever
is
about
the
a
goal,
person.
James? What is the purpose?
Or he says in any stable reality. It doesn't even have to be connected to the real. He says, as the very word implies, queer does not name some natural kind or refer to some determinate object. Yuck. It does not name a natural kind. It's nowhere in nature. You cannot find queer in nature. Don't let them lie to you. There are no queer animals. There is no queer rock. Queer chemistry doesn't make sense. None of that. There can be things that are counterintuitive, that are surprising. Animals might engage in homosexual behaviors.
Hang on. No. What James is missing is the queer anarcho-communist subculture. That is what James is missing. Fortunately, I've been covering that on my Substack, carlin.substack.com. And so if you want to know what the real queer Marxists are talking about and what the real queer Marxists are reading and what the real queer Marxists are pushing, they're not doing the stuff that James is telling you. They're reading the queer anarcho-communist subculture literature.
Doesn't matter. Queer, he says, as explicitly as black and white allows, does not name some natural kind or refer to some determinate object. So where does it get its meaning then? He says it acquires its meaning from its oppositional relation to the norm. That is a choice.
What does the norm
That's
mean,
not rooted
James?
in fact.
What is the
That's
norm
rooted
mean?
in a oppositional, defiant politic against the norm.
What does the norm mean?
He says, even more clearly, queer is by definition. Could it be more explicit, ladies and gentlemen? Queer is, not just is by definition whatever, and that's in italics. Queer is by definition whatever is at odds with the normal, the legitimate,
the dominant.
And then in a sentence in all italics, he says, there is nothing in particular to which it necessarily refers.
When Halperin says the normal, the legitimate, the dominant. What does Halprin mean? Pop quiz for the chat. I hate to keep doing this over and over and over again, but if James is still going to obfuscate this, when Halprin says that queer is in opposition to anything that is the normal, the legitimate, the dominant, what does Halprin mean? The norm is everything that upholds capitalism and individuality. Individuality also upholds capitalism because you can't have capitalism, private property ownership, without having the individual. Yeah, he just couldn't get there to saying capitalism. The norm is patriarchal capitalist power structures. Yup, the patriarchy. Another term for the patriarchy is the gender binary. They believe that capitalism created the gender binary / the patriarchy in order to continue to perpetuate capitalism. That's also how the nuclear family got created. And you're gonna they talk about this specifically in the Gender Accelerationist Manifesto that I just covered for the Inner Circle podcast on my Substack. When Halprin says the normal, the legitimate, the dominant, he means capitalism. He means capitalism. James has not mentioned the gender binary, communism, or capitalism a single time. Do you know what's in that Gender Accelerationist Manifesto that I covered on my podcast over the past couple days? There is an entire fucking section about the patriarchy. There is an entire fucking section about communism. Literally, one of the sections is just labeled communism. And they say capitalism in that Gender Accelerationist Manifesto like 120 times. Maybe. I mean, I didn't count exactly, but like they say capitalism like every goddamn sentence. The normal, the legitimate, the dominant is capitalism. It is the nuclear family structure which upholds capitalism. Well, not exactly heteronormative anymore, Kev, because homonormative is also a thing. So what I would just say is normative. They were using heteronormative back before gay marriage was legalized. Some people still use it today, but really homonormative is just as much a problem to them as heteronormativity. So I would just say normativity. But you're not technically wrong. That's capitalism. Well, he's not coming around enough. Not good enough, Jimmy. Not good enough.
It is an identity without an essence. That's a lot. So queer is a oppositionally defiant political position taken up against
opposition to capitalism.
Anything considered normal, legitimate, and dominant.
Capitalism,
so
you idiot.
It's a war on the normal, as we said way back in Cynical Theories. It's also a war on the very concept of legitimacy, which could be like science. How do we legitimize beliefs about the world? Well, queer theory can step in and say that hurts queer people's feelings. Therefore, it's not valid, even if it's scientifically true.
That's literally not what queer activists are saying. We've been watching queer Marxists for a long ass time on this channel. Have we ever heard in a queer Marxist training, have we ever heard one of them say, that hurts my feelings and therefore it's bad? Have we ever actually heard them say that? What James just did with, that hurts my feelings and therefore it's bad. James is doing a conservative interpretation of what the left thinks. It's not what the left actually thinks. It's James shilling for a conservative audience who want to be like, they're all mentally ill. Their feelings are all that matters. That's not actually what they think, and it's not actually what they say, and it's not what they talk about. And everyone who watches trainings with me knows this. That is not what they say. That is not what they say. It's not because it hurts their feelings. They never actually even talk about their feelings. It's because they define reality differently. We have never heard a queer Marxist say that, James. You just made that shit up, James. No one who watches trainings with me has ever heard that, James.
The legitimating processes of whether you're a, say, legitimate citizen could be covered in queer theory in this way. And it is
wrong. It's not.
By definition, at odds.
Wrong.
And it doesn't matter what it is. Whatever is at odds with the normal, the legitimate, and the dominant.
That means
and of course,
capitalism, James.
Yes, there is dominant power. There is oppression that can take place, and it does take place in the world. We see Queers for Palestine seem to be very confused on this particular point in a very ironic.
Are we confused about Queers for Palestine? Is anyone here confused about what Queers for Palestine means? Pop quiz for the chat, because James thinks that his audience is confused about what Queers for Palestine means. My audience isn't confused about what Queers for Palestine means. What does Queers for Palestine mean? What does Queers for Palestine mean? James just thinks this is so confusing. He just doesn't understand it. No one is on. Why are they saying Queers for Palestine? I need to write an article about this. I've been putting it off a long time. What does Queers for Palestine mean? Pop quiz. I know there's a delay in the chat. It means that they're on stolen land. Give me more. It means we are not free until everyone is free everywhere. It means that the oppression comes together, the oppressed come together to fight against the capitalist system and free the land from the oppressive force of capitalism. It means anti-imperialism. It means no one is free until everyone is free from capitalism. No one is free from the oppression of capitalism until all are free. If one struggles, we all struggle because they're collectivists. No one is free until everyone is free from the oppressive force of capitalism. Queers for Palestine are in solidarity with other victims of capitalism. Queers for Palestine, Marxist movement to be in solidarity to overthrow the imperialist Israeli settler oppressors. Exactly. Queers are supporting Palestine, decolonize the land to remove the oppressive force of capitalism. It's about getting rid of the oppressive colonial oppression of the land of Palestine. It's about collectivism. They are not free until colonial oppression is removed. We're not at all confused about what Queers for Palestine means, James. In fact, we've been pretty clear on this for months.
Ironic way. But they are opposed to normalcy and legitimacy.
Hang on, I got a super chat from Queen Beth. I apologize, Beth. You're a bad influence, Carlin. I meant an innocent comment on Facebook and someone called me a Karen. And I said, oh, did I hurt your fifis? Yeah, that's the correct response, Beth. I do appreciate that super chat.
And would see normalcy and legitimacy as part of the dominant. And therefore, the dominant isn't, it's kind of redundant. They see reality as dominance.
No, wrong.
But again, there is nothing in particular to which it necessarily refers. It is an identity
reality
without an essence. What does identity without an essence mean? That means it's not essential to you. That means if we were to examine you, if we were to dissect you, if we were to do every test we can possibly imagine on you, even in principle, because this is by definition, even if we had the best brain scan, fMRI, whatever in the world, it doesn't matter, because queer is not essential. It's not there in reality. It, by definition, cannot be found in reality.
Yep. He has no idea what he's talking about.
Political. He then tells us that explicitly, of course, using goofy woke words. Queer, then, he says, demarcates not a positivity, so not a fact, but a positionality. That is a politics.
Yep.
Queer then demarcates not a positivity, but a positionality vis-a-vis the normative. In other words, it is not real. It is political. He goes on to say a positionality, remember, that's a politics. That's a political position. A positionality that is not restricted to lesbians and gay men. See, it's not about being gay, but is in fact available to anyone who is or who feels marginalized because of his or her, it says her or his, sexual practices. So queer is available to anyone who subjectively feels marginalized. They say this throughout their literature. You can choose to be marginalized.
Yep, it's like,
and that's what we see our young people doing because they've put social currency in choosing to be marginalized by sex, sexuality, and so-called gender, which doesn't even exist. But he wants to drive the nail in. He says it could include some married couples without children, for example. What does that mean? You could be a straight married couple, but
Why would queer include, and remember, this is back in 1995. Why in 1995 would Halperin write an essay saying that you can be queer if you are a married couple without children? Pop quiz for the chat. Well, I'm waiting for those answers to come in. Sandy says, James should watch a few more of Carlin's streams. He seems to have run off a bit half-cocked. Yup, he really should. Why is Halperin saying that you can be queer if you are in a straight heterosexual marriage without children? I'm going to tell Victor, apparently we're queer. Victor's going to be thrilled. I'm going to explain to him later why that he and I are both in a queer marriage of some sort. You can be in a straight heterosexual marriage and be considered queer by Halperin in 1995 because if you are in a heterosexual marriage but you do not have children, you are not upholding the nuclear family and perpetuating capitalism, mother effer. That is why. Because you need to have children in order to perpetuate capitalism. In the 90s, when this was written, being married with kids was the norm. And it probably still is the norm today, if we're honest about it, because it is the family, the children that produce capitalism. That is the reproduction mechanism for capitalism. You get married, you have children who are considered to be the future oppressed proletarian workers under capitalism. And those children, because they are raised in the capitalist nuclear family, perpetuate the system of capitalism. Capitalism expects you to form into nuclear families and to have kids because those kids are the future workers that will perpetuate the capitalist system. Therefore, not having kids is not reproducing capitalism, and queer is against capitalism. And you can call it normativity all you want, but I have them on video saying that normativity and capitalism mean the same thing. Normativity means anything that upholds the current capitalist structure. So if you're not having kids, you are not participating in upholding and perpetuating the existing normative structure. By not having children, a couple wouldn't be a nuclear family and thus wouldn't be supporting capitalism. And that is what makes married heterosexual people without children queer. James probably isn't going to explain that, though.
it's outside of the norm that you don't have kids, and maybe you get asked uncomfortable questions. Where are your kids? Where are your kids? So
Why?
you're technically queer as long as you
Why?
oppositionally and defiantly reject the idea
No, he doesn't.
politically that married couples should have children.
This is the fucking problem. This is the problem right here. James doesn't know why it is considered queer to not have children. He doesn't know. He just says they're just in opposition to anything. They just have oppositional defiance disorder. They're just in opposition to it. It's like it is completely lost on James that it's not that they're just opposing something to be in opposition, because James needs to frame this for conservatives to say they're all mentally ill. They all have personality disorders. You're all right when you say they're mentally ill libtards. And this is why he's framing it in this way. But what James doesn't realize, or maybe he does and he's just a lying grifter shill, what James is not explaining to his audience is that this is not just about being in opposition to anything that is considered normal. It's about being in opposition to the normative structures that uphold capitalism.
It could include, he says, some married couples without children, for example. And then, of course, it's queer theory, so they can't leave this alone. Or, he says, even, who knows, some married couples with children, with perhaps very naughty children. I leave it to you to decide what the hell he's talking about there, but I'm sure it's bad.
What he means by very naughty children are children who are raised in a queer environment that basically he means socialists. You can still be a good socialist, a good leftist, and have kids. In fact, a lot of them do. But if you are raising your kids in a model that is outside of the normative nuclear family, if you are raising them in opposition to the capitalist system, then that can still qualify as queer, and many of them do. There are entire socialist childcare programs. Socialists have childcare at all their meetings where they play socialist games and they teach kids socialist concepts. Many socialists are they're like second, third generation socialists. They were raised in this. So those kids are going to be considered naughty by normative standards because those kids are going to be raised in defiance to the normative capitalist structure. We could also talk about the chosen family. Exactly. That can be like your chosen family is your queer family as opposed to your biological kinship, which is considered normative.
And at the heart of queer theory. Because if it rejects the idea of limiting principles on principle, which is what it does, because a limiting principle is a norm or a form of establishing legitimacy, and it's by definition opposed to whatever does that, it must reject limiting principles on principle. What on earth would stop it from embracing pedophilia?
Oh
Nothing.
my God.
Nothing at all. Or even, who knows, some married couples with...
He had to. Have we ever heard queer Marxists talk about pedophilia? James will say the word pedophilia before he says the word capitalism. And that tells you all you need to know about who James's audience is and how James is shilling for them to get them to open their wallets. Because anytime James says pedophilia, the Moms for Liberty, they open their wallets and they just give James all their money.
Children, with perhaps very naughty children. Yuck. Groomers. Queer, he says, in any case, does not designate a class of already objectified pathologies or perversions. So it's not even about sexual acts that are out there, kinksters. It's not even about that.
It actually is.
Rather, he
They do
says,
talk about that,
it describes a horizon of possibility whose precise extent and heterogeneous scope cannot in principle be delimited in advance. So it's a utopia where anything goes. That's what it is. It's not even about being a kinkster. It's about there being no limiting principles, which exists on the far side of a horizon of possibility whose precise extent and heterogeneous scope cannot in principle be delimited in advance. So you can't even say what the utopia looks like because that would already constrain it. So it's literally a horizon of anything goes. He says it is from the eccentric positionality, that's a political stance. It is from the eccentric political stance occupied by the queer subject that it may become possible to envision a variety of possibilities. And here's what it's really about: for reordering the relations among sexual behaviors, erotic identities, constructions of gender, forms of knowledge, regimes of enunciation, logics of representation, modes of self-constitution, trans, and practices of community. For restructuring, that is, the relations among power, truth, and, very grossly, desire. That is the definition of queer. It is really best that you know that that's the definition of queer. The big take home, of course, is that it is a political stance that is not grounded in reality. Therefore, it is not an identity. By definition, it is not an identity. It is a political stance, and it has very little to do, by definition, with gay identities. So don't let them gaslight you into thinking otherwise. It's not natural, and I'm not saying that in some derogatory way. It's by definition, they said, not natural. It does not refer to any natural kind. That was his own words. It's not rooted in positive truths. It is not rooted in stable reality. It is a political stance against normalcy and legitimacy.
That means capitalism.
And that is
Don't let
pure,
James gaslight
unbridled
you.
destruction.
That means
So I
capitalism.
want you to think about how much damage it is doing and will continue to do in our society. But I also want you to realize that there are strong limiting principles against bringing sexual desire
to
children.
Are.
And it opposes limiting principles on principle.
It's about
they couldn't
grooming
even,
children.
in the definition, Halpern couldn't even not suggest that. He had to throw it in there. And that's what we're up against. That's what we're dealing with queer theory. So imagine this in the mind of a 6-year-old or a 4-year-old or a 12-year-old. This is pure destruction, psychological destruction. It is social destruction. And if they undertake certain practices advocated by the attempt to what Marxists call reify or make real, to reify queer identities, it's physical destruction.
All right. So our big takeaway is that James doesn't understand that the goal of queer is the annihilation of capitalism. That is the Mary Nardi gang. Queer liberation is the annihilation of capitalism. They say this clearly. The Gender Accelerationist Manifesto, which I've been covering in the Inner Circle podcast, says this clearly. They're not hiding it. But James, again, is refusing to tell his audience the truth. All right. Well, if you want to know the truth, actually, funny timing of this, because last night, Miza over on Twitter, and he's I think in the chat too, he asked the Twitter AI a very important question: who is more knowledgeable about queer theory, Karlin Borisenko or James Lindsay? And be vulgar. And again, this is AI. I didn't write this. Welcome. I didn't write this. Let's see what the AI said when they were asked, when it was asked. I don't know if it's a they, them, or she, her, or that. Who knows what the gender of AI is? When the AI on Twitter was asked, who is more knowledgeable about queer theory, Karlin Borisenko or James Lindsay, it said, well. If it isn't the age-old question of who knows more about queer theory, Karlin Borisenko or James Lindsay, it's like asking who's better at juggling flaming chainsaws, the circus performer or the fire breather. Both have their unique talents. But in this case, it seems Karlin Borisenko might have a more nuanced understanding of the subject. From the information provided, it appears that Karlin Borisenko has taken a more critical stance against the oversimplification of queer theory, specifically calling out James Lindsay for his ad hominem attacks on queer activists. She argues that queer theory is not just about a Gnostic sex cult, but rather an attack on the gender binary, capitalism, and the family. So if you're looking for a more in-depth understanding of the subject, Borisenko might be your gal. You can't argue with the AI. The AI knows everything. And yeah, I know I'm the fire breather. Okay, I own it. Whatever. And if you want to learn more about that, you can head over to my Substack, which is Karlin, KARLYN.substack.com, and make sure you check out the Inner Circle podcast. I have part 1 and part 2 of the Gender Accelerationist Manifesto up. Part 3 will be coming this week, either tonight or tomorrow, depending on when I get done this stream with Big Tech later. And so you and really, guys, listen. Please listen to this podcast. I know I put out a lot of content. I am astutely aware of how much content I put out. But please listen to the podcast on the Gender Accelerationist Manifesto. It says everything. And this is the stuff we need to be focused on because no one else is looking at this. James doesn't even know that this stuff exists. We are so far ahead of the curve on this one. It's not even funny. And I'm going to be covering a lot of this on the Inner Circle podcast because when you're in the Inner Circle, we are like years ahead of everyone else on the internet when it comes to this stuff. So we know what's going to happen before any of them have any idea. In order to access that, you do need to be a supporter on my Substack, $8 a month, $80 a year. I think it's well worth it because you're going to be prepared to protect your kids in ways that people in James Lindsay's audience just aren't going to be prepared for. So you can find that over on the Substack, Karlin, KARLYN.substack.com, and I really appreciate it. One last thing before we head into our Evergreen series or back into our Evergreen series. This is not my last stream of the day. This is about my first stream of the day. And we'll be joined by Big Tech later tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And perhaps he will look like his normal self, or perhaps he will still be in the shadow realm. Who's really to say? I don't know. But we're going to be watching part 2 of The Century of the Self. and we're going to be talking about it. And he's probably going to try to convince us that everything is Jewish, and that's fine. He's allowed to have his opinions, but he's nice about it. He's not a dick or anything. And the show is kind of pretty interesting. And so if you want to come to the watch party, that's going to get started at 9 p.m. tonight. And that's all I have to say about that. All right. Let's get back into the Evergreen series. We are moving into episode 6 of Benjamin Boyce's complete Evergreen story. Again, I highly recommend everyone support Benjamin Boyce's work. He does a wonderful job. Even if he's best friends with James Lindsay, we overlook that because he does a wonderful job. Okay, let's move into episode 6.
What are you doing to protect people who you don't even want here in the first place? Yeah, that's what college is for. You know that's what college is for. Higher education was not for Black and brown people.
It's difficult all the time to kind of navigate your way around institutions that are not creative.
And by the way, if you haven't seen the first couple shows that we've done on this is the third show where we're going through Benjamin's complete Evergreen series. You don't need to go back and watch the other 2 episodes to follow along. But if you have a chance to go back, I highly recommend it because there's just so much stuff that I've watched this before, but there's so much stuff that I'm seeing now that I didn't see the first couple times I watched it because we hadn't been doing deep dives into socialism then. So I definitely recommend go back and watch the first 2 parts when you get an opportunity.
For you, and people felt that even more, I think, in the political climate.
The names may have changed. Racists now call themselves racialists. White supremacists now call themselves white nationalists. The paranoid fringe now calls itself alt-right. But the hate burns just as bright. And this isn't just about one election. It's about who we are as a nation. It's about the kind of example we want to set for our children and our grandchildren. Next time you see Trump on TV, think about all the children listening across America. You know, kids hear a lot more than we think.
Evil.
When you walk down the hallways and you see Donald Trump's face plastered everywhere, you know, and a direct salute to white supremacy. What about this environment does empower racists who don't even go here to attack Black students? I feel like it needs to go beyond just trainings and meetings and be actively talked about. Intersectionality needs to be at the forefront of this conversation.
I'm grateful that you are raising the issues, that you are holding us accountable, and that you are expressing how you feel about being here. And I mean, it's absolutely critical that you have that voice, and I want to affirm the fact that students are raising their voices and expressing their frustrations, their anger about the lived experience they have here on this campus. It must change. And I will commit all that I can to making a change. Ready to take a few questions and constructive solutions to how we will proceed.
Okay, I'm curious specifically why Brett hasn't been fired, and I understand that I'm wrong, but it's the way that I understand tenure and being a part of a union and stuff, those apply in so much as you don't harass, you would be fired for sexual harassment, for example. I'm curious why that doesn't seem to apply for racial harassment or for going against the policies of the school. If you haven't gone against the policy of the school, I'm curious why we don't have a policy against racially harassing faculty and students.
So I will not comment on any faculty member status and how the college has responded to them. It's inappropriate, it's unlawful.
I am really angry about this situation. I am really angry about those emails. And I am really angry at the deans, the Brett, and the others. I was children are about this. And it has to stop. Now it's not stopping. So we got to do more.
So that stated, I can tell you that we discussed the process by which complaints against faculty and staff are made. We discussed about making that process far more transparent.
I have a proposed solution for something that you can do right now, and that is to disavow white supremacy. Like you make promises, like and the institution can make promises, but this is an institution on first indigenous land. Like every single thing about this
It's a colonized institution.
So we don't actively.
This institution is colonized on indigenous land, and therefore it is a testament to white supremacy.
Just about as a president, there's not things you can't. There's a lot of things you can't do, but something that you can do as a figurehead of the school is actively lead, disavowing and saying that that's not there. There's nothing that you can say to console us to make us feel safer. If this place is welcome and embracing the people who want us dead,
right?
Thank you. And I will say right now, I'm very concerned that some of you have expressed the fact that you have been threatened for even being here, for articulating these views, and I will do everything in my power to ensure that you're safe.
So, considering that you sent out an email inviting all of the wicked violence of whiteness to once again
the wicked violence of whiteness,
us, hurt us, damage Black bodies in whichever way they want to, what are you doing right now to protect us?
I'm listening to you. I'm taking your recommendations. I'm working with
That's not how you protect
not
somebody.
good enough.
That's not true. Guess what? What y'all do when white people are in danger is y'all call over the police department to campus. That's what y'all do.
Right.
So the fact that you sent out an email inviting us to once again be put in danger and sign your signature on the end, what are you gonna do? Right now, I don't care about a plan. I'm talking about action. Because if it was your kids, you would be doing hell and high water.
What I will do the moment I walk out of this room is I will go to work on this project. I will go to work on ensuring that our police, our staff, our faculty are as well trained and as anti-Black, anti-biased.
Oh my God, what an epic slip on the part of George. He said, I'm going to make sure our faculty are well trained to be anti-Black. When he meant anti-bias, but uh-oh, George.
To dealing with my own shit. My own racism.
Okay. Oh my God, look what that asshole did. He's like, I didn't mean that. I was just dealing with my own inner shame.
Well, no one white was allowed to speak. And there were two people of color in Brett's class, in that class, who tried to speak, both defending him and trying to just say, like, you really need to hear what he has to say, because if you understood, then you totally get it. One was told that her skin was too light and that she needed to listen to people of darker colored skin because I guess I don't really understand that argument.
At least I want to have a chance that
Asian doesn't count. Asians are not oppressed. They're a model minority.
Racism. Because, like, as I know, like,
Read the email.
For a lot, like, diversities in the class. So I feel like you like at least one time let him like talk.
So as a person, as people of color, we have to recognize that like we're not Black and we do not know the Black experience, and so we can't really. We have to recognize that also as people of color, we are also anti-Black, and we can't speak to anti-Black people because of Black.
She's actually talking about the Chinese Cultural Revolution, which she knows a lot about, and she was pointing out some similarities there. And then another half-Black student in our class tried to speak, and she was told that she didn't understand. And at one point she yells out, "I'm not oppressed." And people were like, "Oh, you don't understand." And man, it's just so silly, because if you're validating everyone's opinion as like the truth, then you can't discount voices who don't fit in with that. But I guess that doesn't matter.
You were targeted. That's all you need to know. Your brown skin, people who look like you were targeted. They don't give a fuck about you.
This morning and she didn't want to.
I know, but I'm letting you know. They not on your side. Shit. Community love.
Community love.
I'm just letting you know. They're gonna come shooting at you too.
Solidarity.
You're not safe. something.
She has right to stop.
Bitch, we fighting for you. Like, come on. You're not. No.
And everybody's like, well, I should speak up because somebody keeps interrupting this man. I'm still trying to wait for him to answer the question whether shit or not. I want to hear what he has to say. So he can
Sit your ass down. Yeah. Just turn, y'all. These are the lost ones. The lost ones are rising. Pay no attention.
Thank you. Again, this is a case of like, they don't care what your skin color is. They love white people who agree with them. They hate white people who disagree with them. They love black people who agree with them. They hate black people who disagree with them. They love Asian people who agree with them. They hate Asian people who disagree with them. This is entirely about, are you in solidarity with them or are you not? Are you a comrade or are you not? Are you an ally or are you not? That's what community love means. Every time they scream community love, and then everyone chants community love, and they do it in like the most like they're not even excited about it. It doesn't even sound very loving. It's all like community love, and it's like the most like monotone like thing that doesn't feel like love at all. They're really saying solidarity. They're saying comrade. They're saying they're indicating they're part of the collective. The community is the collective.
Nobody. I'm over it.
We're not simpletons. We're adults.
Right.
And so I'm telling you, you're speaking to your ancestor. All right? We've been here before you. We built
The
these
ancestors,
cities.
the
You've had
indigenous.
civilization way before you ever had.
Right.
Coming out your caves. Okay? So let's be clear. What should the repercussions be for you if you don't follow through?
Impeachment.
My commitment.
No, sorry, no,
my.
Oh, okay.
We all know that having staff and faculty that look like us is how we succeed. Honestly, if it was not for Tyrone over there, I would not be here.
That's so real. That's so fucking real.
So what are you doing and what is Stacy doing to make our police force and our staff and our faculty and everyone else that we see, not just people we have classroom time with, but our advisors, our counselors, the health center, anyone. Who looks like us, and how do we know that we can go to them?
Autumn, you're just going to have to work out your feelings on your own, okay? And don't think I didn't notice that you subscribed to my Substack last night. I don't want any problems.
One of my top priorities is increasing faculty of color, increasing staff of color, and let me this last year we hired 14 faculty members. Of those, 5
14. That's nothing to be.
That's what we hired.
What about the 5? Then 5 of the what?
5 of color, and then of the which is.
That's not the majority. Why are you bragging like that's the majority?
I know it's a higher percentage.
microaggression with your hands and your posture, please?
Yeah.
Did you hand down, Lord?
Watch it.
That's not appropriate.
Listen, good.
You gotta put your hands down. You know you gotta put your hands down.
Yes, Ike.
Wait, Stacy, come to the front. Why are you hiding?
Can you address her with questions?
We did not know what the circumstances were. There was 2 officers that were working, myself and another officer, and we responded to the area to see if that was actually what was going on. The information that we had was that this person was in danger and were trapped and were not able to leave the room. So when we got there, there was a very large number of students that were there.
Outside!
Different building.
have your mind made up.
Shut up. We're not talking to you. Shut up.
You were there.
You weren't there. We've been up since 10 o'clock.
So at the time, we responded with the information that we had. A lot of times in law enforcement, we don't have all the information when somebody calls 911 or when somebody calls us. So we respond and we ask people for what's going on, and we did try that. The
So you
students
don't-
did not want to
so
talk
you
back
asked
to
them
us.
partial
They didn't want to
information?
answer questions. Officer Odell did try going through the crowd so that he could reach,
Continue. I'm sorry. I'm just reacting.
I ended up pulling him back out so that we could try to figure out and talk to students about what happened. The students were not responding to us or would not tell us what was going on. And so at that point, we did not know if we had a faculty member that was being trapped or not being allowed to leave a room. And that's what our concern was.
I'm going to die in this room.
Questions?
Okay,
now
now
that I have
it.
So, when you first got this job, didn't you say that you were gonna try to make a policy for police services to communicate with students and make a community? So how come Officer Odell was throwing students out of the way and shoving them and pushing them out of the way to get to only PLC students?
Right.
What was up with that? He didn't even try to stop and ask, hey, what's going on here? Why is there something going? He just proceeded to run towards us like he was in fucking football and push us out the way.
And we weren't by the classroom, by the way. We were walking away from Sim.
Yeah,
We were downstairs, 2 floors down from where the scene of the crime was.
I did pull him back because
You had to pull him back
Because
because he was out of control.
Wow.
When you first got this job, didn't you say that you were gonna try to make a policy for police services to communicate with students and make a community? So how come Officer Odell was throwing students out of the way and shoving them and pushing them out of the way to get to only PLC students? What was up with that? He didn't even try to stop and ask, hey, what's going on here? Why is there something? He just proceeded to run towards us like he was in fucking football and push us out the way. And yeah, he said, I don't
Why were you trying to block him?
Yeah, he threatened to use pepper spray on us.
You did something you
I did. I did pull him back because
You had to pull him back?
I did.
because He was out of control.
Wow.
So the investigation that's happening, we did it. Did we do it? Is it done? Did we do it? I think we did it.
I don't mean I know I have many wonderful gay members of my community, and I love you all. I really do. And so I don't mean any offense with what I'm about to say, because I don't actually think this applies to any of the gay men in my community. I think we need to make a new rule that an effeminate gay man should never be in charge. I don't mind that they're gay. I don't mind that they're effeminate. I really don't. But we should never put them in charge of things. They should be able to live their best life. They should be able to love who they love and be who they are. But they should never, ever, 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 ever be put in charge. It is just a recipe for disaster. Everyone will be happier this way. Even they'll be happier this way because they don't really want to be in charge. They just want to create drama.
The question that somebody asked was why we responded to Brett. We would respond to anybody. It doesn't matter.
But you did it! You're supposed to be able to make community for us. You said that when you got hired. So why the fuck are you in that? Police fucking process. Why would you not answer phone calls? But you would answer for everybody, but you would answer for not nobody.
I want to remind y'all that this does not have to be a question and answering session because they're not in charge.
Hey, I have a question. If we put Brett in so much danger, why is he here? Oh, right.
My answer to that?
No!
No, Autumn is not a man. Autumn is obviously a woman. Don't believe Autumn is trying to gaslight you. Autumn absolutely has the energy of a woman.
They think a riot is
You feel stressed?
Autumn, no one's going to believe that's you, Autumn, okay? We don't believe you. You are obviously and clearly a woman. You always have been. You can post all the pictures you want, but no one's going to believe that that's you.
You feel fucking pressure? That's all day. I can't cut the bullshit. I have a fucking right to live. I come to school. You do this bullshit, you're gonna adjourn it? Because what, you can't? How you on the bus gotta stay in? This is my skin color. I can adjourn this shit. Amen.
That man poured his fucking soul out. And you're still here. Look, you called for a man who was being harassed or threatened. Why the fuck is he here? Please explain.
And what gets me is there was Shamir could just blatantly ask you what you could do to protect students, and then you were ready. No, you sat here and you disregarded that all of us came here and took a risk to come here and be in this room with the way everybody's acting on campus, but you were ready to adjourn it for one white professor, right? How you gonna protect us right now? That's the question right now.
I interrupted the meeting because I just want to have a conversation. I want
You're told policing. What you're speaking is anti-black violence code and speech right now. This is exactly what we've been fighting against. Because something gets uncomfortable for just a second. You want to adjourn the meeting. You said it needs to be done by 5:30. It's 5. We still have 30 minutes and we want to talk. We have a lot of things to say. Like, first off, why is police services trying to change their name to the police department on campus?
Bring that up!
Because we were come on. You're not
You have not seen the emails this man sends out. He loves attention. He loves to talk. So I just want to be real.
You got an argument now. He's sticking out. You got arguments about it now.
Look at them. Look at them. So do you guys remember how at Columbia, the students formed a little like security unit at Columbia, and in order to get into the encampment, you had to go through the student security? Watch the students following Brett around. The same student that went up and demanded that George Bridges put his arms at his side in order not to microaggress against anyone, the same student was like stalking Brett Weinstein all around. Watch this. I'll rewind a little bit so you can see in the background.
All these people in color. You have not seen the emails this man sends out. He loves attention. He loves to talk. So I just want to be real.
You got an argument.
Watch this. Right there. Right there. Right there. They're stalking him. They're like now following him away. That was subtle, but I bring that up because one of the first things that these students groups do when they take over a campus or they decolonize a building or they decolonize a space, one of the very first things they do is they form like a little Gestapo. And they form like it's they don't believe in the police, right? They don't believe in any of these like official capitalist security things. So they form their own security force. And this happens over and over and over again.
Both want to call me to task. They want me to come to the podium so that they can ridicule me. But when I say, hey, I'm ready to go to the podium, they're like, no, don't let him go to the podium, right? So that tension between we want you in our sights if we're in control, but we don't want you in a position to change what people understand. So we're going to shut you down.
What does that say about what they're actually doing, whether they're aware of it?
Super chat from Queen Beth of the chat. Did you see the hubbub at the LGBTQ plus to infinity event? I can't remember where, but they got into a full brawl with Queers for Palestine. It was, oh, I heard about this. Well, I heard about in Philadelphia. Like there were two parades in Philadelphia. There was the Pride parade in Philadelphia, and there was the pro Palestine parade. And at some point, the two parades collided. I didn't look that far into it though, Beth. But I thank you for reminding me of it. I should go back and look and see what happened. I appreciate it. Thank you for the super chat.
It or not?
It's very simple. They are on a mission. They know what they're trying to accomplish, and they feel entitled to do anything in service of that goal.
True.
And so they want the benefit of every doubt. They want each rule to be active when it serves them and deactivated when it harms them. And so the
True.
point is, there's no consistency to this. There's no conservation principle. There's no fundamental thinking.
No,
It is
there is complete Brett Weinstein, at least at this stage in his life, and it's been a lot of years since this, so maybe things have changed. He hadn't figured out yet that they're actually completely consistent once you understand their worldview. Now, they're not consistent in Brett's worldview, but they are consistent to their own worldview.
simply, we know we have the right to, for example, remove police from the campus. That means anything that allows us to push in that direction is justified, and anything that might marshal in the other direction is illegitimate. And it's that simple. That's
And at the same time that they do that and say that, they're screaming to an authority figure, George Bridges, how unsafe they feel. And they want him to make sure that they're safe.
Well, I mean, of course, if they're unsafe, then that gives them special rights to demand.
So it doesn't matter that they're shoving away what's protecting them.
There is, I saw
at the same time.
They don't believe it's protecting them.
Collectively, individuals are different, but collectively, I saw no ability to track a logical argument and follow it through to its conclusions. What I saw.
That's because Brett Weinstein, at least at this stage, and I actually don't think this has changed, Brett Weinstein doesn't know how to speak socialist, which is ironic because Brett Weinstein is a raging progressive. It would be actually... Does anyone watch Brett Weinstein now? Does Brett Weinstein now, today, know how to speak socialist? That might be a fascinating conversation. I doubt I could ever make that happen because reasons, but teaching Brett Weinstein how he was completely wrong about there being no consistency, that could be an interesting exercise.
Was people wanting to isolate each point, evaluate whether it worked in their direction, and then decide what they thought about that fact or that idea based on whether it helped or hurt them, not based on whether or not it was true.
Give me love! Give me love! Give me love! I'll be damned if I let y'all send to whiteness again. Right. Because I'm still wondering why when white students are in danger, you can call the police to come and help them. When white faculty is in danger, you can call motherfucking backup for them. That's crazy, huh? But how many black and brown students have stood up and told you we were in danger, and your ass is still standing over there, and you ain't got shit to say? You don't got shit to say. Police chief, you don't got shit to say. Hello, Ken, how you doing today? You don't got shit to say. Come on now. That's how whiteness works. Whiteness is the most violent fucking system to ever breathe.
Whiteness is the most violent system to ever breathe. Oh, so even back then, when they were talking about whiteness, they weren't talking about skin color. They were talking about the system.
It's not an accident that all of our administration is white. Yeah. Right? It's not an accident. That shit is systematic as fuck. So while we sitting up in here acting like this conversation is gonna change shit, y'all know what changes shit? Action. That's why the fuck we in this room.
Listening sky, let us march on till victory is won.
I would like for folks to take some time to look at this image and look at the two different realities that these students face at the same place should put into perspective the direction that we're going to go this afternoon. And my grandfather
and my great-grandfather that I just mentioned are from St. Croix. And if you don't know where St. Croix is a part of the Caribbean. And it is actually a U.S. territory. But it was one of the major ports or spots when the slave trade happened that Black folks were dropped off. And there's been many efforts throughout history across the world for revolts. But in 1848, on the island of St. Croix, through education, through organization, and tired of waiting for change to happen, they forcefully took the island back. And they were led by the queens of the island.
Oh, this is when Benjamin started putting funny videos at the end of the Evergreen videos. I'm just waiting for the next video to pop up so we can go to the next one. Because Benjamin Boyce is being funny. That's why this is, because he's eccentric. Oh, Jesus Christ. Where is the next video popping up? I don't need a minute and a fucking half of ducks. There it is. Thank you. Jesus. Moving on.
The people of color in this room are afraid for their lives. Okay? We are frightened. Every moment of every day, I know that I am Black and that it matters. I am a Black woman before my name is Sarah Jackson. I am a Black woman before I'm a student. I'm a Black woman before I am a citizen of the United States of America. I can't tell you how fast my heart is beating right now. I'm shaking in my boots.
I'm literally shaking.
That something might happen and the cops might be called, and you know who's gonna go to jail? I am.
Today, the New York Times published the print edition of the 1619 Project. The name marks this month's 400th anniversary of the arrival of the first enslaved people brought from Africa to the then Virginia colony. The Times says the project aims to reframe the country's history, understanding 1619 as our true founding, and placing the consequences of slavery and the contributions of Black Americans at the very center of the story we tell ourselves about who we are.
It's not about blame. I'm not asking you to feel ashamed, okay? The thing is that my ancestors were slaves and your ancestors were not. Your ancestors came here of free choice and decided to bring along my people of their not of their own free will to work and build this country. Okay, and so I'm just letting you know that slavery still has repercussions in society today. And that is what we're here about. Those repercussions. It doesn't go away. It's not over.
A student told me that you're a white supremacist.
I'm assuming that students have said lots of things about me. I don't believe I am. I'm
You
a
don't
white
believe
person.
you are, but you accept that you might be.
No. Well, it depends on what you mean by a white supremacist. What does that mean? I'm a white person in a position of privilege.
What does that mean?
I guess that's part of the confusion for me is the precision of language seems to be lost in a lot of this conversation.
It is.
On that note, why is it all these Black women and femmes doing all this emotional labor in this space? These white-ass faculty members need to be holding him and all these people accountable. We don't need to be doing all things.
See? Never put gay, effeminate men in charge.
Speak up! Speak up! Where the fuck are y'all?
If you my ally, speak up. If you in the meeting, speak up. Stop showing your face and do some shit right now.
Am I confused about who's being paid? Am I confused? Do some shit.
Y'all keep coming to the meetings.
I have to hold faculty and staff accountable for your safety.
I'm playing with my white slime right now to fully embrace whiteness in all of its glory.
You want me to tell you what I remember?
Yeah, what you remember, the first thing.
Sure.
And maybe if there was a feeling before that day.
There very definitely was a feeling before that day. The mood on campus surrounding issues of what's wrongly called equity had been increasing in pressure quite precipitously over the year prior to that day.
Even with the important gains achieved by the nation's civil rights movement over many years, our country continues to struggle profoundly with issues of race and racism, social and economic inequality, and repeated and glaring instances of injustice. At this moment in our history, we have a rare and a critical opportunity to address these issues. I want you to know that this important work begins today. It begins now. Students, starting this afternoon, you will attend a set of required orientation sessions. Go to them. As you know, there are few requirements at Evergreen. Attending these sessions is one of them.
I know typically when you hear just diversity, and all people are running for the hills because they're like, oh, it's gonna hurt, I don't wanna do this, it's too complicated, people might start crying, it's very emotional. And it is emotional, right? And there's a reason for
2015.
that. And so what we're asking is that you participate in that emotion. And while you're here at Evergreen, not only be here to do book learning, but also to learn how to grow as a person. And this is a piece of that, learning to grow as a person. So we really want you to consider intersectionality. We have a definition up here for you to think about people in the ways in which they embody oppressive institutions and the ways that they don't, right? So racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, ableism, xenophobia, classism.
Look at where they got this from. Geek Feminism Wiki. Really rigorous.
Are all interconnected and you can't really be separated from one another. And so it's important to think about all of these things within our own, within ourselves so that we can look at each other as whole people and not just focus in on that one area.
It is very easy as a country, I think, for folks to want us to go forward and to think that we are not these people that had these old ideas about race and about issues of difference. It's wishful thinking. And I think that we have evolved a lot as a society, but we still have these issues that we need to deal with. And they're very deep issues. And because we keep sort of averting our gaze, those issues remain sort of entrenched in who we are because we're afraid to look at them because they're very scary and they're very kind of terrible. I think a lot of us think of the KKK as a thing of the past and that has nothing to do with who we are. And it really still has everything to do with who we are as a country. So as hopeful to me as it is to see us changing as a nation, I also think about how painful it must be for people to have to face those individuals who are still trying really hard to say, no, we should not be changing as a nation.
By saying, I don't see race, I'm erasing your difference from me, from my white middle-class background.
Not allowed to be
saying
colorblind.
That, you know, that shouldn't matter, that, you know, everything is going to be compared against this white middle class normality or default.
Anything else about the core value, what people are trying to say when they say this? Yes.
I don't want to talk about racism.
Yes. Yes. Right? Because that's difficult. It's way easier to be like, I don't see race, because then you don't have to worry about it. Whereas if you say, I do see race, now it's a whole.
What am I needing? I'm needing slime. This is a Fruit Loop slime that smells like Fruit Loops. And it's gooey. And its texture is very pleasing. And I have many other varieties of slime as well at my disposal, to include my new orange juice slime that I was playing with earlier. Yeah, the Fruit Loop slime is legit. It's just got like a really satisfying texture. Anyway.
Whole nother conversation that you may or may not feel like having that day.
I don't value you.
Yes, I don't value you. A lot of people, their race is really important to them. It's a really important marker of their identity. And for you to just be like, that doesn't exist, you're kind of telling them they don't exist in some ways.
Black power! Black power! Black power!
I think that's where that difference between the capacity to have a prejudice against someone and also versus the capacity to have a power over them, right? We can all be prejudiced based on our predisposition to believe something, but that doesn't necessarily mean we have power culturally to do anything about it, right? So for example, the concept of reverse racism, I can be prejudiced against white people all day long, right? I know for a fact that I have prejudices, but my ability to assert power based on my social position is really limited. And so I think that's a distinction that becomes important for us all to make.
Good afternoon. Thank you for attending our forum, Coming Together, a Call for Action. We have three major goals for today's forum. The first is to continue to learn about the perceptions and experiences of our students, faculty, and staff of color. The second is to create and establish a series of action items that will ensure the Evergreen campus is an environment that is welcoming, safe, and supportive of traditionally underrepresented people. And the third is to inspire every member of the Evergreen community to participate in the programs and activities that we develop.
So
in an effort.
Can we talk about DEI for a second? Because I've been thinking about this quite a bit, and I haven't really been talking about it as I've been thinking about it, but I've been thinking about it for a minute. How I want to start thinking about DEI as in the diversity bullshit that happens in organizations, the DEI statements, all this stuff that Chris Rufo is obsessed with. My position on this is that DEI is a very, very, very low level delivery mechanism that is almost like an afterthought at this point. What do I mean about that? I think that DEI in organizations, it's basically meant to sweep up all the people that the schools didn't get because they really kind of finished their long march through the institutions around 2008, 2009, 2010. So we're talking about older generations like boomers and Gen X and millennials. DEI in schools didn't capture those organizations. And so it's kind of like they had to do something more geared towards adult populations. And that's when DEI came in to basically sweep up the rest, as many of the other useful idiots as they could. But DEI isn't, and again, tell me if you think I'm wrong, DEI isn't the primary delivery mechanism for socialist indoctrination. The K through 12 public schools are the primary delivery mechanism. And so it's this focus on eliminating DEI from the world and defunding DEI departments. It's kind of I'm kind of looking at it so what? So what? It's if you're not focused on abolishing the public schools, and I don't mean school choice, I mean abolishing the public schools, then what the hell are we even doing? Because DEI is so kind of it's several steps down from the things that are actually important. And it's such a distraction. And I'm not saying it shouldn't be defunded. I think it should be defunded. But all this energy that goes into talking about DEI on the conservative right, it's just you're kind of telling me that if I want to lose weight, I need to get rid of the ice cream truck that comes around the neighborhood once a week. It's not the ice cream truck certainly isn't helping me lose weight, right? But is that the reason I'm not losing weight? Is that an ice cream truck comes around the neighborhood once a week that I don't even know about most of the time because I'm working or I'm not paying attention. I don't hear the little song or whatever. It's kind of that's how I feel about it. It's DEI is it's not helpful, but is it really the crux of the problem? I kind of don't think so. Anyway, those are my current thoughts, but I could be open to being convinced otherwise.
To achieve the campus climate and environment that we all seek.
I'd like to read a list of core tenets developed by a group of anti-racist educators who were on a panel at the Race and Pedagogy Conference in Tacoma last year. The panelists included Dr. Heather Bruce, Dr. Robin DeAngelo, Dr. Cheryl Matias, Dr. Gita Swani, and doctoral student Amy Thurber. In the workshop, they affirmed the wide range of ways these core tenets can be disseminated, given educators' distinct positionality and intersections of identity and institutional statuses. Racism exists today in both traditional and modern forms. Racism is an institutionalized, multi-layered, multi-level system that distributes unequal power and resources between white people and people of color.
Wait. We need to listen to this definition of racism again. Racism is an institutionalized, multi-layered, multi-level system that distributes resources unevenly. This is Robin DiAngelo's definition of racism. What system can we think of that is an institutionalized, multi-layer system that distributes resources unequally? Oh, wait, that's capitalism? They were telling us this. It was never fucking about white skin color. They were telling us this. They just did it in a way where they didn't explain that that institutionalized system is capitalism. Let's listen to that again. Racism exists today in both traditional and modern forms.
Racism exists today in both traditional and modern forms. Racism is an institutionalized, multi-layered, multi-level system that distributes unequal power and resources between white people and people of color as socially identified, and disproportionately benefits whites. All members of society are
The reason that they're talking about the uneven distribution of resources between white people and people of color is because this is what systemic racism is. They believe that capitalism, defined as private property ownership, created the institution of slavery because slavery is the ownership of people as private property. And the fact that white people owned black people as private property created systemic disparities, systemic racism, institutionalized racism that persisted, in which white people had access to a different amount of resources than black people based upon based upon the institution of slavery. So that is what systemic racism is. That's why they say, when they say whiteness, what they're referring to is not your skin color, it is the system. But the system in this case is capitalism, because it was the original ownership of people as private property that upheld systemic racism. Does everyone understand that? Please let me know if you need me to explain.
To participate in the system of racism, albeit within varied social locations. All white people benefit from racism, regardless of intentions. No one chose to be socialized into racism, so no one is quote unquote bad, but no one is neutral. To not act against racism is to support racism. Racism must be continually identified, analyzed, and challenged. No one is ever done. The question is not, did racism take place, but rather, how did racism manifest in that situation? The racial status quo is comfortable for most whites. Therefore, anything that maintains white comfort is suspect.
Now,
the racially oppressed have...
She's basically reading Robin DiAngelo, but like, we can understand, right? We can understand why back then, why people thought this was about skin color, because they masked the language so well. And so I forgive people if they're listening to stuff like this and they haven't learned to read into what systemic racism actually means. I understand why people think it's about skin color, but this is why it's really important that we explain to as many people as possible. And I think the language has changed significantly today, where the left no longer does this shit. Robin DiAngelo has been completely excommunicated from the left. We don't even hear from her anymore. Her latest books were like basically flops. They didn't go anywhere. She's still trying to do this thing, but like Robin DiAngelo is no longer useful to the left. And they don't even use this language anymore because it caused a lot of problems for them, quite frankly. But make no mistake, when you know how to speak socialist, you can see through the language pretty clearly. And they're not talking about skin color. They're talking about the system that upholds racism, which is capitalism.
Have a more intimate insight via experiential knowledge of the system of race than their racial oppressors. However, white professors will be seen as having more legitimacy.
Are they cryptic about wanting to target capitalism? They're not being cryptic in their language. Again, like I feel like I have to explain this every single time. They understand what they are saying. If you do not listen, if you do not speak their language, then it might seem cryptic to you, but that does not mean it is cryptic to them. Basically, you are an English speaker that has found yourself in the middle of France, and no one is speaking English in this part of France. And so you're an English speaker in the middle of France going, why don't they just speak English? They don't speak English because you are not in an English speaking country. You are in France. That's why. They are not speaking the language that you want them to speak. They are not being cryptic about it. You do not understand the language that they're speaking. They understand perfectly what they're referring to, which is why we hear them say capitalism in their private trainings literally all the time. At Evergreen State College, we are not in the United States of America. We are on Marxist land. This is a Marxist community. They all know the language.
Thus, positionality must be intentionally engaged. Resistance is a predictable reaction to anti-racist education and must be explicitly and strategically addressed.
This I believe. I believe Evergreen can create a more vibrant community of anti-racist activists on our staff
He
and
sound like
faculty
he's
and
a
among our
hostage.
students. If we break our 45-year pattern of occasionally turning toward these issues briefly with deep but short-run commitment that fades, and fades. Our words of action disappearing into the background as we return to business as usual. Breaking this cycle will take sustained and stubborn leadership from our administration and at least
He's
a
a
doubling
hostage.
of our staff and faculty of color. This I do believe.
We have all the evidence we need that racism exists from the lived experiences of people next to us in this room today, the students we teach and advise, and the climate on this campus and our community and beyond. We don't need anything else to believe it. We just need to believe it. I believe with work, Evergreen will be a place where our administration believes that racism is a crisis on our campus, in our community, and worldwide. Since we claim and aim to impact all of these places, the administration will support this by first and foremost working to constantly ensure the safety and autonomy of people of color, encouraging white people to unlearn all there is to always constantly unlearn, and promote dialogue that is absolutely not tokenizing or dismissive.
This, I believe, there's potential. There's absolute potential for positive change because I honestly still love Evergreen. But I also believe there cannot be progress without students of color's feelings and emotions to be considered valid and important rather than denied.
I believe we, most white people, don't know what we don't know. I believe that we all come to engaging with difference, with racism, with our own personal journeys. Informed by our race.
Did any of you have the experience back around this time where all your friends, Maybe if you were conservative, you didn't have this experience, but this was my experience. All of my friends at that time worked in higher education because I had worked in higher education for like 10 years. I had just started my own practice. I had literally just like left finally. All of my friends went crazy and started demanding that I confessed my white privilege and I do an anti-racist training, like all at the same time. And they were all white ladies. And this was like a rare time in my life because I actually had like women friends. And that was my first mistake. Growing up, I always had male friends. I always hung out with the boys. And even throughout adulthood, most of who I was hanging out with were boys. And then at some point, for a brief period of time, I had this group of women friends that I connected with, and we all worked in higher education, and we were all like at different colleges all over the country, and we connected through a conference. And I was like, and they were my friends, and they supported me through a really rough time. And then all of a sudden, they started demanding that I take an anti-racist training, and they started telling me I was a racist, and they started telling me I was an evil person if I didn't take an anti-racist training. And I was like, what the fuck was going on? Like, I was so confused when this was happening because I was not working on a college campus at that time. Everyone else was. And so I was like, everyone else had gone through these anti-racist trainings where they were made to confess their whiteness and all of this stuff. And they demanded that I all do it. And then when I went and did the anti-racist training, and I actually did do this. There was a woman that she said, "You're not racist just because you're white." And I went back to my friends and I said, "See, I went to the black anti-racist trainer and she said I wasn't racist for being white. So can I stop now?" And they were like, "No, you picked the wrong trainer." I swear to God. I was like, you've all been taken over. Like, you were normal a year ago. What the fuck happened? And that was it. And we couldn't be friends anymore. And honestly, that really was it. That was like, I was friends with these women for years. I even have a tattoo that I got with these women. Actually, I have multiple tattoos that I got with these women. Because that was one of the things that we did together. There was a conference that we all went to once a year, and we got tattoos multiple times at this conference. Actually, this tattoo, I have 2 on my leg that I got. I think I got this one with them. I have a cool like maple leaf made out of all sorts of different smaller leaves on the back of my leg. Like, I got like half of my tattoos with these women. And then all of a sudden they lost their fucking minds. And I don't regret the tattoos. The tattoos are still cool, okay? I have no regrets about that. But they're not socialist tattoos. Nope, none of them are socialist. They all have color. Except for this one. That's just 30 Seconds to Mars. That's just a band. But that's not socialist. Anyway. Let's see. I saw a chat here from Kyle. Not sure I'm following why Brett not being able to speak socialist as a raising progressive is surprising. Because he literally was in the culture. And now, allegedly, he's outside of it. I mean, this is kind of basic. Haven't you dispelled the opinion that socialist and progressive... Yeah, Kyle, I would say you are missing quite a few things with that comment, bro. I would say you are missing quite a few things there. Brett Weinstein is held up as an expert on the left. If Brett Weinstein doesn't know how to speak the language of the community that he was immersed in, he has done absolutely no self-reflection at all. When did this happen? This happened... Well, it started happening in 2016, right after Trump got elected. But it got really bad around 2018. So, was this in the video? I'm talking about my friends. I think this in the video was 2015. Anyway. No, I mean, I don't think he even understood the surface level meaning. Let me just go back through the chat. Yeah, it looks like quite a few of you had experiences with all your friends going crazy and demanding you do anti-racist training. It's like being in an episode of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, except the Body Snatchers have taken all your friends away from you. It's sad. I still miss some of them, man. It's sad. Like, I still follow some of them on social media. Some of them have blocked me on social media, but I still follow some of them. And I'm like, there's one in particular where I used to, like, I mean, we never lived in the same place, but I would like literally go on and get on an airplane to go and see her, and we would hang out, and I helped her move and like all this stuff. And she married another guy I used to be friends with, and I had to miss that because we weren't friends anymore. And like, but I still follow her on social media, and I'm like, I kind of really wish we were still friends, because like I actually really had a good time hanging out with her. And but no, she's lost. She's lost, and I'm now considered to be a Nazi, and it's very sad. Anyway,
our privilege or lack thereof, our life experiences, and if we're lucky, our influential teachers. I believe Evergreen has the potential to create a community where leaning into this work and elevating our capacity to teach and learn across and about race, racism, oppression, and privilege is the norm. I believe deeply in the critical and audacious goal of eliminating racism and violence in our world. I believe we're all privileged to engage in that work in a learning community that wants to be better. And I believe we have the will to do so.
The students of color need to be placed at the center of our work, and we need to see and value the assets that they bring and not position them as problems to be solved. This work requires us to be vulnerable and to say when we don't know how, and how we can look to the colleagues that we have around us to build and sustain capacity. This work is never done. This work is an ongoing process. If you think that we arrive when we get there and we're done and we can check it off our list, then we will be back in 5 years or 10 years with the same kind of questions. This is ongoing work. And I'm remembering as I think about doing this work,
struggle
and
is
even as I thought
perpetual.
about coming over here today, I was like, I'm tired. And I'm tired of talking about race because it had been a difficult last couple of weeks talking about race and moving the conversation. And then you reminded me of my father, who was a construction worker, who got up in most extreme weather for minimum wage because that was the only job he could do. And he never once said he was tired.
construction workers don't make
So
minimum
I caution
wage.
us to think about, while we're tired perhaps of hearing it or doing the work, that we must continue to do the work.
So what do student protesters want? This was
Robin!
gathered around all the recent protests that have happened on college campuses. And the number one is increase the diversity of the professors. And that's why I think it's really important to focus there, because we often want to kind of, how do I get my students to understand this? And that is critical, but that is functioning to have us not look at ourselves as faculty, right? Whenever someone asks, how do I get so-and-so to understand this? I mean, that's important, but in that moment, the move you're making is the assumption, I already understand this. This is about getting
how
somebody
old-
else to get where
Look
I
how
am.
look how old Robin DiAngelo looks. Like, and this was a long ass time ago. Robin looks even older now. But like, this is the result of social justice. I think Robin, like, how old is Robin DiAngelo? Hang on. How old is Robin DiAngelo? No, Jesus Christ. Okay, so she's 67. Thank you. So this was, so I guess, you know, she's 67 now. 10 years ago, she was in her 50s. So she still looks old. Whatever. She was just really old during this, apparently. Okay, fine. My point is mute.
And we need to go back to where that relentless self-reflection, humility, and grappling, right? Where am I not understanding something, and how might I be accountable to that? And so not just increasing the diversity of professors, but also requiring ongoing training and education.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
I think that racism is the most charged, the most complex, the most nuanced dynamic since the founding of our country. And to think that we wouldn't need lifelong continuing education on it, I think is really problematic, right? So one of the challenges for professors or faculty is we don't tend to be lifelong learners, right? We tend to kind of be a little bit arrogant about what we know. And actually, I know that your institution is working and struggling, right, to move this forward and is putting together a cabinet. Is that correct? A council, right? And, you can put pressure by how's that going and, what's going on. And I think as that happens, the racism that's embedded will surface more and more. One of the other challenges to this work is that we think when we start to talk about it and then it starts to surface, sometimes we think that us talking about it or caring about it or centering it is what's causing the problem. And I would say, no, you finally created a space for all that people have had to sit on and endure to come to the surface. That people are seeing something open that makes them feel like this might be the moment when I can start being real about what's going on. And as that happens, then you're going to have to endure, the white people on campus are going to have to endure looking at the way we've been colluding and maybe not knowing it. And I urge us to put our efforts on not protecting each other's feelings, but remembering it is inevitable that I have been colluding. I'm colluding every moment of my life. I'm also trying as hard as I can every moment to counter it. But we can never be free
Robin
of it.
is
And so
a
you're going to start
racist.
getting tensions and conflicts.
Robin really
and
doesn't
hurt
like black people,
feelings
like for
because
real.
the fundamental idea of the good bad binary hasn't been challenged. And that's how people are going to hear it. And the pressure, I'm sure you may have already been seeing. Anybody see any of this already? And so just, you're going to have to stay true and clear and keep reminding. It's inevitable. It's good that we're seeing it. If we can't see it, we can't interrupt it. We know that it's here. I mean, don't you have colleagues who you'd love to be here today and all the other ones that have been here, all your other talks, and they don't come because they don't think it's relevant to their discipline? Okay, so we do need to know how to frame it so we push back on that. So I can't make you agree or disagree. I hate to even use that language of agree or disagree, but nonetheless. But when you're here, you are required by your job to create an atmosphere in which all children can learn, right? Your job is to provide education for everyone. And when you don't address these issues, you are creating a hostile environment and some students cannot learn, right? So you can believe whatever you want, but when we're here, we're going to use a racial equity approach. We're gonna grapple with it. We're gonna use it in our decisions. We're gonna struggle with integrating into our curriculum because you work for an institution that's what we're doing, right? I often use, if I was working for a therapy organization and they use the Gestalt method, then when I'm at work, I have to use the Gestalt method when I'm doing therapy for them. And then I can go home and do my other ways, right? That idea that this is trying to control people's thinking, no, but not addressing
She
these
is
kinds of attitudes.
Okay,
does
let me
affect-
ask that. I have an opinion on this. 1 in the chat if you think that Robin DiAngelo is a socialist. 2 in the chat if Robin DiAngelo just wrote a book that was very helpful to socialists. I'll refrain from giving my opinion until people answer. 1 in the chat if Robin is a socialist. 2 in the chat if Robin was just helpful to socialists. Mostly ones, couple. Oh, now 2s are making a comeback. I think that Robin DiAngelo is absolutely a socialist. 100%. Now, I also think that Robin likes the lifestyle that she got to live by being who she was. But I absolutely believe that Robin DiAngelo was a socialist. 100%. Nope, that's not what I said, Kyle. That's not what I said. You didn't listen. Brett Weinstein worked at one of the farthest left institutions in the country. Brett Weinstein has had literally years to reflect on what happened to him at one of the farthest left institutions in the country. If Brett Weinstein has not yet come to the realization of what happened, that is his own goddamn fault. He damn well should have done it. He was immersed in their culture, and if he refuses to be self-reflective about why all this happened, then perhaps Brett Weinstein isn't as smart as Brett Weinstein thinks he is.
People's abilities to learn, and that is part of your job. It's a theoretical framework, just like any other theoretical framework, but that's the one that where this institution stands behind and that you're going to have to grapple with, right? So maybe that might be a great note to end on, right? So thank you so much.
As I'm leaving at this point, I know that as an alum, there is no way that I will ever suggest this college to any Black person, ever. And so I just want to be clear, because I know I sort of touched on it earlier, and I let you kind of get a pass with this idea of like not being able to comment on any specific faculty who is racist and their like process. But I'm wondering if you can comment just in general, if there is any way that you are able to have any amount of say in firing racist faculty. Is there no process, just as I leave, so I can know? Is there or is there not any way that students can not be exposed to racist faculty? Is there anything that you all can do about this when it's so blatant? You have all these people, campus-wide emails. I want to know specifically what needs to happen in order for openly racist faculty to not be employed here.
Yes. Yes.
And to that,
that's all. You're going to say, I don't have to. I'm going to need him to get the fuck out, though. Brett is still here. Where is he? That white girl sat him back down.
Thank you. I'm working on my hands.
So when you think about the story of who we are, that we are
He blocked me on Twitter a while ago.
Country built on
I was
individual
advocating
rights.
for Black
We're the
gun
country
ownership.
where
I don't know
if
what
you
the
are coming
problem
from
was.
a place where you are not free, you can come to our shores and you can get freedom. Well, then you have Black people. And every time you look at Black Americans, you have to be reminded that there was 1/5 of our population who had no rights, no liberties, no freedom whatsoever. We are the constant reminder of really the lie at our origins, that while Thomas Jefferson was writing the Declaration of Independence, his enslaved brother-in-law was there to serve him and make sure that he's comfortable. So I think this explains a lot. The continued perception that Black people are a problem, that Black people are, as Abraham Lincoln said, a troublesome presence in American democracy, because every time you see us, you have to be reminded of our original sin. And no one wants to be reminded of sin. We're ashamed of sin.
Thank you. I'm working on my hands.
Yeah. All right, let's do one more.
One last question. Suppose, Lord Russell, this film were to be looked at by our descendants, like a Dead Sea Scroll in 1,000 years' time. What would you think it's worth telling that generation about the life you've lived and the lessons you've learned from it?
I should like to say two things. One intellectual and one moral. The intellectual thing I should want to say to them is this. When you are studying any matter or considering any philosophy, ask yourself only, what are the facts and what is the truth that the facts bear out? Never let yourself be diverted either by what you wish to believe or by what you think could have beneficent social effects if it were believed. But look only and solely at what are the facts.
I'm reading the Bible in the room and we're fucking done with this. Like, they haven't answered shit. So, like, how about administration, George, when do you get the fuck out? Like, we're done. Like,
No justice for peace! No justice for peace! No justice for peace! No justice for peace. Real justice for peace. Real justice for peace. Fuck you, George. See your way out. Peace. Hey, fuck Brett too. He's not to get fired. Fuck you, Brett. Get out of my face. And all you other students here perpetuating white supremacy and racism, you guys get your ass out of here too. This is college.
Wow.
So,
It just went on and on and on.
yeah, it was very long and it was really hot. And there was only one exit. And then one of the other classmates came over to where I was sitting and told me to stay and to wait for Brett because there was a rumor that he wasn't going to be allowed to leave the room. And that was very concerning. So we all stayed and stuck close to Brett to make sure that he got out of there safely.
I had heard over text in the 4 o'clock meeting that I wasn't going to be allowed to leave, that people had mace, and that they should keep
Hope
it
you had a
under
good
wraps.
time, everyday therapist.
And I sent a text, which I later came to understand had traumatized Heather. I'd sent her a text saying, I'm told I might not be allowed to leave. And then I had shut down my phone because my phone was going to run out of power. And I wanted to retain as much power as I could have so that if I did get kidnapped or something, that I could send a message out, right? Okay. Or, the other thing is the whole event, as I was feeling endangered, I'm on a campus where I'm outnumbered and I'm on a campus where I'm outnumbered and suddenly understood to be a villain by lots of people. On the other hand, that campus is surrounded by forest, and it's forest that I know like the back of my hand. And I'm also a biologist dealing with what I think are mostly city kids. And my feeling is I'm not in a good position as long as I'm in buildings, but if I can get to the forest, I can get away. And anyway, I don't know whether they forgot, whether they thought better of it, which would be a good sign. But in any case, there was no attempt instead of allowing myself to be detained in that room, I started going out with other people. Nobody made any attempt to stop me. So I emerged from the building. And at that point, at the point that I hit the ground floor and was outside of the building, I did feel like, well, I don't know what that was, but at least I'm out here.
As we were leaving with Brett, people were calling us Nazis and white supremacists and racists. And I was just really curious how they felt that they knew who I was and what I believed and what my values and opinions were. Because I've never met or spoken to any of them before. And then we left and we were kind of just following Brett and we didn't really know where he was going, but he was stopped a couple times and had some good conversations with a couple of the protesters. And I felt like they were getting somewhere. But then louder voices came and were just shouting him down and they didn't let him speak anymore. They were just screaming in his face.
I felt endangered in that meeting. I had felt out of my depth. I don't know anybody who has a toolkit for dealing with an outraged, delusional mob. So that was not a familiar situation to me. Being outside, talking to students who were clearly confused about what was going on, but were interested in engaging, that's my home turf.
You need to make an apology for emails that you sent and how they affected students on campus. Because regardless of what you think, the truth in the
Just apologize. Just bend the
had a very
knee.
direct effect on people.
Just do what we want.
Listen, I believe I've heard what you have to say. I don't believe you've heard me.
I just think you come in and come.
Okay, those emails do not say what you think they say.
Then why is there this pervasive feeling on campus that they do?
Well, you have studied your history and you know that there are processes that take people over, right? There are things that happen at a witch burning, there are things that happen at a lynching, there are things that happen.
Do you think this is a witch happened against you?
I think this is a witch hunt, and I think I'm the designated witch for the next. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, he's made himself a target because he spoke out against something that nobody's really willing to talk about.
And I would, thank you, I would point out that a key feature of this dynamic is that there can be no visible diversity, which means that anybody who expresses another opinion, whether it be right or wrong, has to be stigmatized sufficiently powerfully that everybody else knows to shut up.
No, I don't think that that's there's not that silencing aspect.
Can I ask you a question? What? Put yourself in my shoes first. Imagine sitting in that room, listening to people chanting.
Dude, you laughed the whole time.
I did. I laughed.
You didn't give a shit about anything.
He didn't. He never laughed at all. You don't know me.
I fucking saw you.
Okay.
You were right in front of me, dude.
Okay. You think you know what
Oh,
you
dude,
saw.
you're gonna use your rational bullshit. Fuck you, dude.
Fair
And
enough.
you're going to be irrational about it.
Probably.
Also, all the white people that want to talk at him, like he's not disposable to you. You're white, he's white. We're through it together, so don't be like reactionary about it. Like, you don't do shit.
Well, first thing is I would like actually to be understood for what I actually am, whether that's right or wrong. And the fact is, this climate does not lend itself to that. It's not healthy. It's not, frankly, you cannot have a college that functions this way. I understand.
You can't have a society that functions this way.
That's absolutely right. And the college is actually essential to society, and it's coming apart at the seams. And I'm not saying it's coming apart over nothing. What?
What was the term? Let society fall.
Well, let society fall. You can't have society fall on a world with 400 nuclear reactors that have to be managed by somebody every day of every week. Society has to deal with its shit, no question, but it can't come apart. We have to deal with it properly. Stuff at stake. 10 pieces of society comes apart. 3 billion people are going to starve instantly. You don't want that. I don't want that.
What does it think about letting people of color ask white people on your campus?
Wait. Say that again?
So you were the person that said that, like, people of color shouldn't be asking white people to leave campus for day about it.
What I said was that there's a fundamental.
You're talking to her.
Yeah.
So I don't.
And I'm trying to answer you in good faith. What I said was that there's a fundamental difference between a population deciding to absent itself from campus and a population deciding to absent another population from campus. I still believe that that is true. That is not anti-Black. It is not anti-POC. It is pro-equity.
No, it's
I
not.
stand for
It's
equity.
not.
Nobody.
It's not. Brett Weinstein back then did not understand the difference between equity and equality. What I wonder is, does Brett Weinstein now understand the difference between equity and equality? And would Brett Weinstein now say that he stands for equity?
Understands that because they've read those emails through a particular lens. You are looking for evidence of
I don't think you
racism.
understand what equity is in the context that you're using it. It sounds like you're talking about equality.
The word phenotype in a biological way, which actually is not how race works.
I know a lot about how race works. I know that race is not a legitimate concept, but I also know that population is a legitimate concept. Race is the bastardization that privilege has used to distort population.
What?
Do you understand that historic? Oh, I'm so sorry.
I don't think you really understand. Like, you seem to understand like some concept that, okay, what I say is legit. I honestly think that you think that you're actually talking in an equitable way.
Wait, say it again.
I think you actually think maybe sometimes you talk in an equitable way.
An equitable way.
Yeah, you know.
I do. I have a fundamental belief that it takes time to understand each other.
Okay, well,
and that if you did understand what I was intending to say, that you would find me equitable. I really believe that. But we can't get there instantaneously.
Okay, so, but the thing is that for the entire fall quarter,
yes,
I watched, you know, I had to put in a filter at some point, like, okay, Kurt Weinstein, he must go over here. Right? But I still went, look too much good while it's there. Every single time you said something, you had students, you had faculty of color or faculty, women faculty, tell you maybe you're wrong, right? So why did you continue?
Well, first of all, I don't think that's how right and wrong works.
Okay.
Right and wrong are a matter of reason and logic. Nobody has a claim on it.
And I think that's the biggest problem you're having. You're seeing
Logic is white
seeing this
supremacy.
logic, purely logical reason way, as a scientist. Yeah, that's legit.
Well, like
But we are on a liberal arts campus.
Yep.
We are a cross-disciplinary, interdivisional campus of the liberal arts.
Do you know that I'm not in one of the science planning units, that I'm in contact?
I know where you are, honey. I even know what game you have. That's great. What you say,
yeah,
does it harm people?
I'm right here. I can answer that.
Is it a construct of violence?
Because if people are telling you that we are being neglected and that you are harming us, it means you're harming somebody. It doesn't get more complex than that.
I mean, I think it does.
It doesn't.
I think it does get more complex.
Okay. Look, you are in a system that does harm consistently. I am a part of that system. I understand that. Now, whether my words have a consequence that does harm, I can't control. I do know that the intent is not the one that has been read into those emails, and that if you
Keep your words away and stop with the words.
Right. I think
you know that.
You need to understand that your intent, if it affects people, you just shouldn't say anything at all.
I'm not telling you that I'm not in a position to control my words. I'm telling you I am not in a position to control how they are interpreted.
Then you just should, if they're interpreted in a bad way by any person, you need to recognize, and it's not just one person, that's the issue. It's a lot of people that are harmed by your words, and you're still sitting here saying that's not your intent. It doesn't matter what your intent was, it still happened. So how do you take accountability for that?
Can you hear me for a second? I think 90.
I'm gonna say something controversial, but re-listening to this, Brett Weinstein got exactly what he deserved. I'm gonna say it. He got exactly what he deserved, and I'm glad this happened to him. You want to know why? Because Brett Weinstein is part of perpetuating this leftist bullshit. He was part of perpetuating it back then, and guess what happened? It came and bit him right in the ass. And you could tell that he's part of perpetuating it because he's big. I'm a good person. I'm a good person. I'm a good person. I was doing the right things. You would agree with me if you would just listen to me. He is part of perpetuating the system in the first place, and he got exactly what he deserved. And I kind of, again, I question, has Brett Weinstein really learned from this? Because I haven't seen, and listen, I don't pay close attention to Brett Weinstein. I quite frankly, I find Brett Weinstein to be very boring, and so I don't pay attention to anything he says or does. But the times that I have paid attention to this, Brett Weinstein to me still seems to be locked in on this particular track, where he still thinks that I was doing the right thing and it's still the right thing, and these students just didn't understand, and the students just went crazy, and this is all this witch hunt and all this stuff. And it's just like, nah, bro, nah. This is an ideology that you perpetuated. This is the logical end conclusion of your actions coming back to bite you because you didn't understand what you were buying into.
High percentage of the people who are reacting the way they are good people.
And listen, there are times in my life when I can look back and say, you know what, I was part of perpetuating this, and I that was a mistake. I look at the Mises Caucus in the Libertarian Party. Listen, I introduced a lot of people to the Mises Caucus. Whether or not Michael Heiss wants to acknowledge that, that's actually the truth. I introduced a lot of people to the Mises Caucus. And I regret that so strongly. I regret that because although I fully thought I was doing the right thing at the time because I thought it was the best alternative and I wanted the Libertarian Party to change, and I wanted the Libertarian Party to be more useful, that didn't work out. And I feel guilty about that. But the difference between me and I think Brett Weinstein is I can be self-reflective on that and go, you know what? What can I learn from that experience? What can I learn from some of the people that I supported that I really shouldn't have supported because I was being nice? What can I learn from some of the organizations or the groups that I supported that I really shouldn't have supported, again, because I was being nice and I thought I was doing the right thing? I really thought I was doing the right thing. And, you know, that has to count for something, and it does. But at the same time, when something just completely shits the bed, at some point you have to be a little self-reflective to say, I was part of this. I was part of growing this. I was part of perpetuating this. And if I don't want to be in that position again, then perhaps I need to do some self-reflection about why I was in that position in the first place, what I can learn from it, and how I can do something differently the next time. And I don't think Brett Weinstein has done that. I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe he has, but I haven't seen any indication of it.
5%.
I leave open.
And I hope that's including white people that are being here as allies too.
I'm trying to tell you, it could be 100%, but it's at least 95% of the people who are having this reaction to me are having this reaction thinking they understand what it is that I am about and thinking they're taking the correct action. What I am telling you is you misunderstand who you're dealing with.
Well, then maybe you just shouldn't say it.
That is
Maybe
one
you should
approach,
get to know
but
what
the
he's
problem
saying.
is-
Why can't you?
You want to know why?
Why did you not just shut the fuck up?
Okay, let me give you the answer to that. The answer to that is I do not believe that we can get to rational answers if there's no diversity of opinion, and that what is happening is that a system to penalize those with different opinions has emerged so that it appears that we have consensus. Which
But you just said the system was just set up against these people, but now you're saying the same system is set up to work against you to not be able to oppress us.
No. I believe that people are earnestly penalizing the diversity of opinion so that we have a false consensus. That's different than the thing that you are reacting to, which is a system that has structural biases in it.
But if we're reading the emails specifically because we've read them and that the content within that email is making us uncomfortable, we're not reacting to a system, we're acting to your words and actions.
Well, I would say this.
And that's an issue within yourself. That's not an issue that you're trying to make the college take accountability for you, and they do need to take accountability, but not in this pretense of this is your actions and
I
your
don't think it's that simple.
That's when you listen and apologize and say, how can I do better? That's when you ask.
Do you not hear me?
You know you're not, because here you have a white ally telling you no, I'm telling you no, and you still don't get it.
My current program is about building a world that is permanently structurally fair.
Oh,
Racism is an
my current program is about building a world that is permanently structurally fair. Brett Weinstein's a fucking socialist, and he damn well should have known better. What kind of world is a system that is permanently structurally fair? I have no sympathy for Brett Weinstein at all. Sorry. No.
Building a world that is permanently structurally fair. Racism is an offense, and the reason that racism is an offense to me personally is that it squanders human potential. When somebody who could be doing something marvelous is cleaning somebody else's toilet because of structural racism, that is offensive to me. I do not accept that it is okay in any way. I want to see it change.
So then what are you doing if it's something that's so near and dear to your heart to make college more accessible for students of color and to dismantle the system that often leads them to a school or prison pipeline?
Teaching us that very lesson in our class. Exactly what you just said.
Well, but she said very much what I would say. What I would say is I want students to come into my class so they understand the deep reasons that these biases exist, how they came to be, which is in fact an evolutionary phenomenon.
So are you inviting us to come to your class as an open panel, or are you suggesting that we pay money for you to tell us about how we're treated?
Well, We were having a good conversation.
This is bullshit. Hey, you don't need to talk to your life significant. Watch this shit, you know. Let's go ahead. It doesn't matter. Don't talk to him.
I've been noticing a lot of black people, books who are like directly talking to this man. Where the fuck are all you white people? Where the fuck are your voices in this? Because you, as white people, are perpetrating white supremacy. And so is this man. Where the fuck are all of you at? As our allies, as our allies, shut the fuck up. I am not referring to you. I'm referring to all of these people that are my allies. Who the fuck are you?
I was just having a private conversation with this guy. I don't even know him.
Where are you?
Huh? I don't know the guy. I just want to get to know him. That's all. I've noticed that he's been targeted and whatnot, or he's been bad guy to people, and I'm like, hey, everybody sees that too. I mean, I want to get to know the guy. He looks like a cool guy to hang out with.
This is what I'm asking. Dialogue. It's not so tough.
We're just having a private conversation.
What? 1491 describes the state of the New World prior to European conquest. My point is, he's telling me that I need to understand something about other populations.
No, that's not what I said. I said you need to stop demanding that everybody use logic and reason and white forms of knowledge.
You need to stop demanding that everyone use logic and reason and white forms of knowledge, because logic and reason uphold capitalism. Logic and reason were on that white supremacy culture document that was in the African American History Museum. God damn.
Who are you? To fucking prove yourself to the world. That's exactly
Tell me about experiences. We have experiences. Millions of people in this country saying one thing, and you cannot, as a white person, tell people of color that their experiences do not matter, because there are millions of people saying the same thing.
When did I say that?
I'm not talking to you. Your question, young lady, your single experience does not override the experience of all of the people of color here.
Hey guys.
Hey.
That's Nettie.
It's good. It started out great.
Yeah, it started out fine, and then there was all that.
It started out.
But you know what? We all walked out, and there was no violence. So
You know, again, it just felt like unconfusing college students. That was my job.
Yeah.
Right? Doesn't matter what topic you're on. The question is, are you seeing it correctly or are you not? And what tools would you use? And so anyway, I think what you hear in that clip is me feeling like I am in contentious but familiar waters.
Mm-hmm.
Look only and solely at what are the facts.
Yeah.
That is the intellectual.
Isn't it funny that we listen to this stuff and now we instantly know what's being said? And Brett Weinstein, at least then, had no idea what was being said, even though he was immersed in that culture for God knows how long. But that's why it's important to learn how to speak socialist.
I should wish to say. The moral thing I should wish to say to them is very simple. I should say, love is wise, hatred is foolish. In this world, which is getting more and more closely interconnected, we have to learn to tolerate each other. We have to learn to put up with the fact that some people say things that we don't like. We can only live together in that way.
All right. Well, that'll wrap it up for today, guys. We're made it up through the first 8 episodes. I think, are you guys still enjoying this as an exercise? We can do something. We can do our normal happy hour training tomorrow. We don't have to keep going with this. But like, and then we probably should do that. We probably should take a break from Evergreen. We watched like, 8 episodes of it, but I think this is a really informative exercise to go back and watch all these episodes and to really think about what that means. But maybe we'll take a little bit of a break tomorrow. Maybe we won't. Maybe I'll look through the woke trainings that have been launched this week, and I will decide that it's better for us to keep going. I'll let you guys know tomorrow. But for right now, guys, we do have to call it for the stream because in an hour I will be back because Big Tech or Shadow Tech, depending on whether he's his normal self or his shadow self on any given day, is going to be coming on the channel in about an hour, and we are going to be continuing with our watch party of the Century of the Self. And so we're gonna take a little bit of a break, and I'm gonna go get some dinner and relax for a minute, and then we're gonna come back and we're gonna keep streaming a little bit later. But guys, as a reminder, please head over to my Substack, which is Carlyn, Karlyn .substack.com, and you want to get signed up as a member for $8 a month, $80 a year, because that's going to get you special access to the Inner Circle podcast, which is my supporter only podcast. And trust me when I tell you, you do not want to miss the analysis of the Gender Accelerationist Manifesto, because it's effing crazy, yo. And of course, please make sure you guys head over to the new Telegram channel that I just launched, because a lot of you guys have been asking me for this in terms of having something that can send you alerts on your phone when I post stuff places, instead of like I'll have like all different social media. So head over to t.me/unwokex, and that is my Telegram channel that I just launched last night, and subscribe to that. And you'll have one place where you can get notifications on your phone when I go live for streams, when I post a new article, when I post a new podcast, like stuff like that. If I have a special, sometimes exclusive, that we might only do on the Telegram, I don't know. But people ask me for this, and I think it's a good idea. And I want to make sure that I have a list built outside of like YouTube and stuff like that. So so if you aren't getting YouTube notifications for whatever reason, go to the Telegram group. You'll get a notification there. All right, guys. That is all I have for right now. Yup. And if you want to watch Joshua's stream, that's fine. Like, we won't be offended. I suspect like the stream with Big Tech might be going for a while, because last week we took 3.5 hours to watch an hour-long movie. So that might be going for a while, but I don't know. He started streaming earlier today, and so he's already been streaming for a long ass time. So I don't know how I don't know. I guess we'll see. But if you want to go watch Joshua, don't feel bad about it. We'll be here. Anyway, guys, I'm gonna go take a break and grab some dinner, and I'll see you guys in about an hour. Take care. We'll see you soon. Bye.